let's do a quick recap of what we did yesterday. So yesterday we basically enabled a couple of analytics rule to basically allow Sentinel to to identify threats from the data sources or from the logs that we have configured. Okay. Yep. So we have basically created a couple of we have basically leveraged the analytics rule from the solutions that we have installed. The solutions provide out-of-the-box analytics rule that you can make use of, and you just need to configure those rules by enabling them, and you can also make certain changes to the rule while you are configuring them. And then you also have custom rules that you can create. If there is any out-of-the-box analytics rule that does not meet your requirement and you need something else, you can also create custom rules in Sentinel. So what we did yesterday, we created both custom rules and we also leveraged or we also made use of analytics rule. That's what we did. So we created a rule related to brute force attack on RDP, brute force attack on Azure portal. So we created a brute force attack on Azure portal custom rule, as well as we also used an out of the box brute force attack on Azure portal analytics rule, which is part of Azure Active Directory solution. We also created an out-of-the-box rule, which is attempt to sign in from a disabled user account, which is again Active Directory. We also created a custom rule, which will analyze the subscription if there is any private endpoint for a service for a past service has been deleted. So if the private endpoint for a service is deleted, it will quickly create an alert because it could be an incident. Modify network security group for a critical VM. And similarly, for a critical virtual machine, if there are changes to the network security group, which is front-ending, which is the virtual firewall for a virtual machine, whose job is to inspect the traffic based on the rules, which is configured in inbound and outbound rules, and allow or deny the traffic based on the policies which are there. So if there are changes to the network security group, front-ending a virtual machine, it will also create an incident, which is very important for you to know because you don't make changes to network security groups on daily basis. You only can create a group, identify the appropriate rules for the group, and then you continue to use those rules. And if there is any change that needs to be done, for that you will need to raise a change request in the ITSM solution that you are using, which will then be approved by the change advisory board, which includes the application owners, infrastructure owners, security team also. And then the change will be executed at the scheduled time. That way you can configure suppression or you can configure uh, the Sentinel also to not unnecessarily create incidents because the change is expected. That is an approved change. So that is how Sentinel can be made to work with in collaboration with your change management process also. So then there is another rule which is whenever an AWS S3 bucket access policy is modified or Azure activity logs rule. So this is what we have created in our portal. Let's have a quick look at it. I'll turn on one of the virtual machines. All right. So let's see what all rules we have installed. Now, the another thing that you need to know, guys, is that other than in the content hub, you don't only have package solutions from Microsoft. You also have standalone solutions. Now, what are standalone solutions? Standalone solution basically means that if you are a contributor to Microsoft, let's say you're part of Microsoft GitHub community, you are Microsoft most valuable professionals like MVPs, or you want to contribute to the development, to the enhancement of a solution, you can join the Microsoft community and you can put together a solution that Microsoft will validate. If they find value in that solution, they will have that solution incorporated into their product. So that is what standalone is all about. Now, if you look at the content source, we have two types of content source here, solution and standalone. So if we look at standalone, if I just filter for standalone, these are my standalone solutions. Now, in the standalone solutions, you will see that some solutions are related. There are some analytics rule here. There are some workbooks here. There are some hunting queries here. So these are my standalone solutions. Now, let's say I am looking for a standalone solution to manage my web server because there is no analytics rule that can help me to identify incidents that happens at the web services layer, which is IIS layer. So what I'll do, I'll type IIS and I'll see if there are rules available, if there are solutions available for IIS. So yes, there is one solution which says there is one query which is potential IIS brute force. I'll talk about queries in our next session, but let's see there are solutions available. So you can see there's a solution available related to IIS, which there is a analytics query available. I'm say in what scenarios you are writing custom analytics queries when you do not have an out of the box analytics query serving the objective or addressing the specific requirement. So you can see here is some solutions related to IIS and they are standalone solutions. For example, high field of high count of failed attempts from the same client IP. Now, this could lead to distributed denial of service attack, that somebody is trying to send a lot of fake requests to my website, which is unnecessarily making my website busy. And sometimes the authentic user is not able to, get access to these services. So when you click on this analytics rule, you will see that this analytics rule, this is an analytics rule, this is the category, it is free of cost. Now, sometimes you will also see who has created that analytics rule. So you can see here, Shane has created this analytics rule and it says supported by community. So basically this analytics rule is coming from a community. I'm saying is coming from Microsoft community, and Shane is the person, who has written this analytics rule, and this is a standalone content. Now the question is that when I use a standalone content from the content hub, when I use a standalone solution from the content hub, and what if that solution does not work properly? Or because of that solution, my Sentinel deployment goes for a stake and say it gets corrupted or it starts to get some issue, or there is a solution from the content, from the content hub, and the solution and the standalone solution, they both are conflicting with each other. Will I be able to raise a support request to Microsoft and ask for assistance? Yes and no both. You can raise a support request to Microsoft and ask for assistance. However, Microsoft will give you a disclaimer before they get into the call, before they get into the support, that they might not be able to support it fully because it is not from them. It is from a third person. It is from a third party. So that is the only drawback of using standalone solutions. However, standalone solutions can at least give you some insights, some ideas in terms of the query. Let's say you have you want to configure similar monitoring to your website wherein you want to know if I'm getting a connection request from the same user time and again. When I say same user, it could be the same user trying to connect to my website from different systems or from the same system, which means same client IP or a high count of connections by client IP on many ports. If you want to check whether there are users who are trying to connect to my website on different ports at the same time. Now, this could all lead to security incidents because they are type of attacks. So even if you're not configuring this rule from here, at least this rule will give you the initial KQL, the query that you can take reference from. You can modify the query based on your specific requirement and then go ahead and create a custom analytics rule. So that is what you can do. However, this rule will not work because this rule will require a connector, which is W3CS IIS logs that we have not configured. So you can see here, this is the rule logic. Even if you're not, even if you're not using this query as it is, at least you can copy this KQL and you can modify it and then create a custom analytics rule. Now, when you create a custom analytics rule, Microsoft will support it. Microsoft will at least, you know, Microsoft engineer will support you. However, they will also give you the disclaimer, but they will at least support you. They will at least connect you with somebody who understands KQL, somebody who will validate your KQL and the configurations that you have provided in the rule and help you resolve the issue. So that is what you can take. So for this rule will not work because in order to make this rule work, we basically need a connector that has the capability to ingest logs from IIS service, Internet Information Service, and that connector is W3 W3C IIS logs. So since this connector is not available, I'm saying we don't have it configured. You can see this data source is not configured. That is why we will not get anything coming from this rule. However, if you have a couple of web servers in your environment, what you can do, you can configure this rule. So how do you configure this rule? First, you need to enable the connector. So you can search for the connector and say in the content source, please click on apply all. And then here you can select. You don't direct have a connector. I'm say what you can do. There is another way of doing it. You can directly go to Log Analytics Workspace, since Sentinel is going through a migration from Log Analytics Workspace to Azure Monitor. For this, what you can do, you can directly go to Agent Configuration, Legacy Agent Management here, and here you have IIS logs. You just need to enable this functionality here, collect W3C format IIS logs, and then you need to apply. Now, what will happen? It will start to collect IIS logs from the virtual machines that has IIS installed on them. So this is one way of doing it. So you can do it from here, or I was actually looking for this solution in the Sentinel itself, but unfortunately we don't have in Sentinel. Probably they will add it in some time when they will move it from Log Analytics Workspace and put it here. Right now it is not here. It is not here as I speak. So we can enable it from the Log Analytics Workspace as long as it is there. And once we enable it, then we can use these analytics rule, because the moment you enable the data source, it will start to ingest logs into the Log Analytics Workspace. Now you need KQL queries to query the log of a specific nature, and then you can create an analytics rule to convert that log into events and then that event into an incident if the specific requirements or specific behavior is met. So that's what you can do. So this is what we have done. We have actually installed couple of analytics rule. We have created them and we have installed also from various solutions that we have installed. So these are the solutions that we have. So we'll just filter to apply. Now these are the solutions which are installed in my Sentinel infrastructure. So I've got AWS, I've got Azure Active Directory, I've got Azure Activity, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Azure Active Directory Identity Protection, Logic App, Azure Network Security Group. So these are the solutions that I have installed. Uh, Azure Storage, changes to PIM settings. I've also installed this solution, which is a standalone solution. You can see it's a stand. So if you want to see how many standalone solutions I've installed, these are the standalone solutions that I have. So I have Azure Network Watcher dashboard, which is a standalone solution. I have changes to PIM settings, a high count of failed attempt to the same client IP for the IIS, high count of failed logon by a user for the IIS. I have Microsoft Sentinel deployment and migration tracker also that I'll talk about. I have new user created and added to built an administration group. Another query I have. This is also this is also a standalone solution, which is somehow not available in Active Directory. So what the solution is, what this analytics rule is, let's say you create a new user today, and you create a new user and you make that user a contributor or an administrator on the same day. Now this could be an anomaly. And so this could be an expected behavior also that somebody has joined at level 3 in the organization and level 3 person needs administrative access. But this could also be an anomaly. This could also be a breach. This could be an attack that as part of that attack an imaginary user is created and administrative access is granted. So your security team needs to be updated about it. So this analytics rule will basically identify from Azure Active Directory, and this also has the capability to work with Windows Server Active Directory. So it will identify from both Azure Active Directory as well as Windows Server Active Directory if there has been any user account which is created and has been granted administrative access within 24 hours of creation. That's what this rule does. So this is what we have installed. Okay. Now let's go back to the so this is what we have installed in the content hub from the solutions, a couple of community as well as couple of Microsoft solutions. Now, so in a production environment, what will happen as soon as you install a solution and configure an analytics rule from that solution, or as soon as you write an analytics rule, while writing the analytics rule, you will validate the data source, whether the data is coming or not. And the way we have done it yesterday, while we were writing an analytics rule, we were validating whether the data is coming or not. Because if the data is not coming, then there is no point of writing that rule. You will first need to modify your query. You will first need to modify your query and make sure that the query is generating the data. If you feel that the query is right and the data is not coming because that specific event has not occurred, then it's a different case altogether. So it's an ongoing activity and typically done by the administrators because you will not enable everything from day one. There's a high probability that you will start small and expand when needed. And so that's another best practice in IT, which says start small and expand when needed. So probably what will happen, so start small and expand when needed. This is another best practice that I always follow, which means I will not enable everything or I will not configure all the solutions from day one. So from day one, you will only enable required connectors, data connectors, and configure required analytics, or you can say threat detection rules. That's what you will do from day one. I say while you are doing the implementation, you only do the required, which is bare minimum, which you have discussed, agreed with the customer. And then as part of operations, as part of ongoing solution optimization, admin will continue to add more capabilities to the solution. They will continue to add more capabilities, which means they will continue to look for existence of new analytics rule, anything which is introduced recently, anything which is already there but is not enabled, they will continue to add to it. So it is not that once you implement the solution, the admin job is over. No, admin will continue to optimize the solution because operations team may not have access to this console. They may not have access uh, to basically create an analytics rule, be it out of the box or be it content, be it from custom analytics rule. They may not have the capability. Okay. So these are the solutions, or these are the solutions that we have installed. As part of these solutions, I've got a couple of analytics rule also configured here. So let me see what rules I have configured. These are my analytics rule that I have configured here. Now, since this is a lab environment and we have limited time and we need to, go through all the aspects of Sentinel in 6 days of training, which includes both administrative, which includes, operations, and which also includes the design architecture and the additional capabilities with the integration. So definitely we will not be able to get to the depth of it. However, I have I have included, or I have explained the process. The process will continue to remain the same, whether you do it for 2 servers or 2000 servers, whether you create a one analytics rule out of the box, or you create 100 analytics rule, whether you write a custom analytics rule once or you write it 100 times, the process will remain the same because I have explained you the nitty-gritty of it, the various components that you need to configure. So that will continue to remain the same. And that is where, if you are already part of Sentinel operations, I would expect you from today onwards to look for the possibilities and configure additional analytics rule, configure additional queries, additional boards, or whatever capabilities are available in a specific solution. Try and see how many of it you can do. So for example, if I take example of one of the solution, which is, let's say, Azure Active Directory. So this is my one of the solution, Azure Active Directory. And if I click on manage the solution, I see that this solution has 59 analytics rule. But the question is, how many have I configured so far? Not more than 2, 3, because we are using a lab environment and we cannot just focus on this topic only. We have other topics to cover. But in a production environment, there is a probability that you will configure at least 10, 15 rules. Now, how many you will configure? There is no documentation, there is no best practice. It all depends on environment. For example, if you're using Azure AD free license and you don't have multi-factor authentication, conditional access, identity protection configured, installed and configured, there is no point of configuring a specific analytics rule which will bring similar data. So for example, you have this Azure AD role management permission grant. Now, this rule, NRT privileged role assigned PIM. Now, these rules will only make sense when you have the capability configured in Azure AD. If you don't have privileged identity management configured, there is no point of enabling this rule. So another best practice of implementation is that you should not just enable everything which is available just to please or just to impress your customer that sir, that see we have done this and that. It doesn't make sense. It will unnecessarily create administrative overhead, and it is like putting junk into the solution. If I configure this analytics rule and if I have not enabled Azure AD specific functionality that is food for thought for this analytics rule, this rule is nothing but a junk for me. I have unnecessarily created a rule which will not bring any intelligence to me, which will not provide any support to security operations team because it will never ever create events and incidents because it will not have data coming. So that is another thing that you need to understand. For example, this analytics rule, brute force attack against a cloud PC. Now this cloud PC is M365 PC, not the virtual machine that you provision. So Windows 365 Cloud PC is another service provided by Azure Active Directory. So if you don't have this cloud PC service available in your Azure subscription, there is no point of configuring this rule. So I repeat once again, never ever configure everything which is available out of the box. Use your own brain, think whether it is needed because Microsoft may have thousands of solutions available, but do you really need those thousand solutions is the question. Because at the end of the day, Sentinel is is a paid solution. There is a cost to everything that you configure. So when you configure something, there is a cost to it. So you should not unnecessarily configure a solution that is not supported, that is not applicable. So you should use this, use this method. Okay. So that is why we have not configured everything which is there. We have configured what is bare minimum needed. You can see this is, we have a lot MFA rejected by user. There is a lot which is there, but we have not configured everything. Okay. So this is about the analytics rule that we have solutions available in Content Hub, both community solutions, Microsoft solutions, and marketplace solutions available. And those solutions we can configure to enable threat detection capabilities from Microsoft Sentinel. And that's what we have done. Now that we have configured the solution, the next thing is to wait. Next thing is to wait for incidents. Look for incidents, whether those solutions are generating the incidents or not. Now, since this is a lab environment, incidents will not be generated all by itself because nobody is using this environment other than yourself. In fact, you all have your own respective individual lab environment. If we all had the same lab environment, we had more probability to get incidents because probably some of us will try to log in to a service by typing incorrect password or will try to log into the service, you know, a number of times that will
Raj,
create. Sorry.
I had it overnight, like I left my VMs logged on, and overnight I've got thousands of alerts for brute force attack on the VMs.
I will come to that part.
No worries.
So so that's what we need to remember, guys, that since this is a lab environment, we will need to simulate attack here. It will not come automatically. So my next, so I'm so we are done with collect phase. We are done with, now we are in the detect phase. And between collect and detect, we were creating the analytics rule. Now in the detect and investigate phases run in parallel. So in the detect phase, we identify that what all we need to detect. And we have already taken that decision that yes, we need to collect certain logs related to Azure AD. We need to collect logs related to IIS. We need to collect events related to let's say, storage accounts, which is S3 bucket, or Azure storage account, we need to collect event related to network security group. We need to collect events related to private endpoint. This is what we have configured at a bare minimum in our lab environment, etc. So we have already decided that what we need to collect in terms of logs and event, and then we want them to get converted into incidents. Okay, so that is what detect phase is. Now my next phase is investigate. So I want to investigate, but what I want to investigate? I want to investigate events and incidents. That's what I want to investigate. So because of these, because of this detect phase, because of these analytics rule, threat detection rules that we have configured across the services, I have actually got a couple of incidents and events created in Sentinel dashboard. And now my operations team will actually investigate, will actually look into the detail of those incidents and try to resolve them, and will also suggest a strategy so that something similar will not happen, similar incident will not come. Operation is not about working on incidents all the time. Operation is also about optimizing them. Now, you will say that this is the job of an admin. No, this is not the job of an admin. Admin will not know until operations tells them. Admin can configure reports, and through reports, admin can identify that how many brute force attack has triggered in this environment in the last 1 month. What was the nature of that attack? But this is all passive information. It is the operation team member who will have monthly or bi-monthly cadence with admin team, and then inform admin team about their observations. So this is another best practice in the security monitoring operations, that you should have at least weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly, monthly cadence with your admin team, with your, when I say admin team, you can say with your architect also, people who are responsible for the configuration and optimization of the solution. And you need to inform them, and you will need to share your suggestions also. Okay, so now we are on this phase. Today we are focusing on investigation. That's what we are focusing today. So we are going to investigate the incidents that Sentinel has created. So let's go back to the Sentinel portal and let's see the incidents. Okay, now let me show you something. What you see right now on the portal, let's try and understand. So people who are from operations, since they work with this portal day in, day out, they have they have more knowledge that I may have when it comes to the portal navigation, when it comes to various options, various navigation capabilities which are there on the portal. People who are into admin or who are into engineering may have similar or low knowledge, because they don't work with portal day in, day out. And people who have just started working with Sentinel in this training only, definitely they may struggle up to certain extent while trying to navigate from one option to another, because they have just started. It is the beginning of their journey. But since you have embarked on this journey, one thing is for sure, that if you continue with this journey and if you continue learning the product, probably a week later or a month later, you will have equal competence and comfort level with this product as that of an operations team member, somebody who has been working with this product for the last 2 years. This is something that I can guarantee. Okay, so let's see the incidents. Now, when you are looking at the incidents, you should always use this filter, which is the time frame. That right now you see that I'm only looking for the last 24 hours of incident. However, if I want to see previous incidents, I would need to look for the time range. I can select this predefined time range, or I can select a custom range also. Now, what is this custom range and how long can I go here? So this custom range is directly proportional to the retention that I have configured in the log analytics workspace. So Sentinel uses the same retention setting. And if you want to see the retention setting that you have, you can probably go to settings under configuration. You have an option that says settings. Here, you can click on workspace settings. In fact, you can see here also, this is the data ingestion in the last 30 days, and you can go to workspace settings, or you can directly navigate to the workspace. And under workspace, you can click on usage and estimated cost. And here you can see the retention. So my retention as at present is configured as 180 days, which basically means I will be able to see the information of the last 180 days. So that is what the retention is all about. And that's accordingly, you can use the custom solution. Now, why would you need to look for incidents of last month or or a month before? No. If you're part of operations team, you would probably be interested in the incidents which are new incidents, because every incident needs to be addressed in the operations team, right? And and uh, there is a bifurcation in the operations team, like level 1, level 2, level 3, wherein level 1 is responsible for picking up the incident, do the initial triage, and then forward it to the level 2 team. Level 2 team will probably resolve that incident. And there are times when level 2 also don't have the capability to resolve the incident. For example, let's take this example. So let's say we have an incident. So there is an issue to my keyboard that I will probably get rectified over the weekend. That it doesn't type letter E. Okay. So there is an incident, and that incident relates to a rule which is private endpoint of an Azure SQL PaaS database is deleted. Somebody deleted the private endpoint of an Azure SQL PaaS database, which basically means, what is the impact of this incident? The impact is that now the database is exposed to the internet. Why? As its public endpoint is enabled. The moment you disable the private endpoint, public endpoint will get enabled. This is my impact. This is the impact of the incident, and this is my incident. So an incident is created in Sentinel, and that incident says private endpoint of an Azure SQL PaaS DB is deleted. Now this incident is picked up by annual team member. What I'm telling you is the process, and process may differ from organization to organization. But what I'm telling you is the process that is being used in most of the organization. So the incident will be picked up by L1 team member. Now, L1 team member, after picking up the incident, do the initial triage. Now, in the initial triage, L1 team member understands that the private endpoint has been deleted, and private endpoint was deleted by whom? So L1 team member will get the user information, will get the IP information, will get the specific resource ID, the specific private endpoint that is that is deleted. And if L1 team member has read-only access to the portal also, L1 team member can gather additional information about the service also for which private endpoint was deleted. But that is all L1 team member can do. And then what L1 team member does, L1 team member forwards this information to L2 team members. Now this level 2 person may have the capability to take further action on this incident. Now what is my further action? Maybe I want to remediate the incident by reverting the changes. So I want to recreate the private endpoint for this service, but most of the time your L2 team members also also may not have access to this. Why? Because this is a private endpoint, this is an Azure service, and typically either your L3 team members, if they are experienced team members, either L3 or service admin. And who is the service admin here? Your network admin. Somebody who knows the virtual networking. Your network contributor admin has the capability to recreate the private endpoint. So either the L3 will have the capability, or if L3 does not have the capability, in any organization, you have a workflow. You have an SOP. Operations team follows an SOP, which is standing or standard operating procedures. As per the standard operating procedure, you will know that if there is an alert related to databases, what should be done in that case. So probably L1 will directly forward it to L3, or it will forward it to L2, and then L3 comes into the picture. But at the end of the day, since this is a private endpoint, it can only be recreated by somebody who has network contributor access on the subscription, or network contributor access on the resource group where private endpoint needs to be created. So either L3 will do it or service admin will do it. Now there is another probability of automation. Now what this automation is, that probably I can have a logic app, I can have a playbook that I can trigger to recreate the private endpoint. This is another capability that I have available, that I can recreate this private endpoint. And I can run this automation either, and I can run this automation at this, when the incident gets created, there are two options here. Once again, I can run this playbook as soon as the incident is reported by Sentinel, or I can run this playbook during investigation. Both options are available. There is no out of the box playbook available for this use case. You will need to write a custom playbook, which will not be an easy task. To recreate a service, you will need to write a custom playbook, which is you will need to write a logic app workflow to do this. And this is the possibility. So this is how you will investigate an incident, that you will have bifurcation in the operations team. You may not have L2, you will have direct L1 team, and then L1 is either responsible in a small setup, in a small environment. You will have only operations team, which is some operations team member who has the capability, who has some capability. Either they will be able to resolve the incident by themselves, or they will send it to the service owner, and service owner will resolve it. In a bigger environment, in a fully configured large enterprises, you will have the different roles at action. You will have L1, L2, L3, and then automation team, separate team, typically L3 team, who's responsible for optimization and automation, SOAR capability, and you may have a separate team for the admin activities also. So this is how you basically resolve an incident, that you have a bifurcation, and this will be your guiding principle. So you have SOPs available in the operations team that will be the guiding principle. Whenever you are in doubt, you will follow the SOP as an operations team member. I hope you follow the similar process in DXC or operations also. If it differs, let me know. Okay, so let's come back to the portal. So I will first now, as an incident responder or as an operations team member, my job is to make sure that every minute incident that is reported into the portal is addressed, is worked upon. So let's see how many incident has been reported in the portal. So if I see let's say last 30 days. I'm saying we started this training on 17th. So let's say last 14 days. How many incidents have been reported in the last 14 days? Look at the number. I've got 420 incidents open and 420 new incidents, which means all the incidents, those were reported in this portal, none of them were addressed so far. They all are new incidents. New incidents means as if they are just they were just reported and the team is yet to take an action on it. So they all are new incidents, 420 incidents. Now, if you see, majority of the incidents are brute force attack on RDP. Brute force attack on RDP. These are majority of the incidents. And that is the same case with you, Quinton, also, right?
Yes, but instead of one event per incident, I've got like 2,500 and 3,000.
Yeah, now I'll tell you the reason why it has happened. See, what happens, you have threat vectors active on internet, and they are not human all the time. They are actually bot. Bots are programs. So a human who is a hacker will actually write a bot, deploy the bot on various systems and spread them across the network, and then that bot will continue to trigger an attack, brute force attack. So when you see multiple, probably, or most of the time, 99.9% of the cases, it is a bot that triggers a brute force attack. Now that's exactly what has happened on your machines. Why? Because you have a virtual machine in Azure. That machine is configured with a public IP. That machine has an NSG that allows inbound traffic from internet. And when I say internet, from any source, to inbound traffic from internet on TCP port 338922. This is the reason of brute force attack. So what is happening? You have a virtual machine in Azure with a public IP. The virtual machine has an NSG. Let me show you. So I'll duplicate this. So even if I look at the brute force attack that is happening on in my, in my environment, if I click on any of the brute force attack, look at the virtual machine name. The virtual machine name is Azure Monitor Log over here. This is my virtual machine name. Okay. Now I'll go to the portal. I'll navigate to virtual machines and see. Now look at this virtual machine, Azure Monitor Log. This virtual machine has a public IP. Okay. So since it has a public IP, it is routable on the internet, which means this machine is exposed on the internet. Now let's see whether I have any protection in terms of network security group for this machine. So I go to the networking tab and I look for the network security group, which is this network security group on the machine. And here's the inbound rule. Look at the inbound rule. It says RDP, it says port 3389, which is TCP RDP protocol, port 3389, TCP port 3389, any source, any destination allowed. This is the reason why brute force attack is happening in our environment. Why? Because this is a pure misconfiguration. A, you will never ever have virtual machines configured with public IP. This is my Sentinel is just a security monitoring solution. It only tells you what it sees, but who has the capability to fix it, or who should create an environment as per the best practices is the governance team, is the admin team, is the architect team. So virtual machine with public IP is a big no. You should never ever have a virtual machine with public IP. It should not be, it is not the right configuration. Even if you need this virtual machine, because when you have a virtual machine with public IP, and and then on the top of it, you have an NSG rule which allows RDP traffic from internet from all sources. What do you expect other than brute force attack? Definitely there will be a brute force attack because there are bots on the network, and these bots have been instructed to randomly pick IP addresses and send telnet and find out what all ports are open on those IP addresses. So there's a code which is there in the bot, and it's very simple. You can write that bot in Python. And so it's very simple. The Python script is available on the internet. You can just search for it, provision a Kali Linux VM, deploy Python on it, write a bot from that code, and then your bot will search over the internet all the public IPs, and then it will look for the specific ports which are open on those IPs, and it will start to connect. It will try and gain access to that resource on that port. Now, my virtual machine has public IP, so it is accessible on the public internet. It is exposed. Then I have a virtual firewall frontending my machine, which is allowing RDP traffic from the internet from all sources. So this bot will actually identify that yes, there is a public IP available, and that public IP has port 3389 open. 3389 belongs to RDP. So it means that it's a virtual machine. It's a Windows operating system virtual machine. It could be Microsoft Windows client or server OS. Now that bot will try to gain access to this virtual machine by using a combination of username and password, and hence you will get these brute force attack. If you ever leave your virtual machines up and running, configured with public IP in Azure, you will expect it. This is expected, brute force attack. And there will not be one, there will be multiple depending on who you are, which geography you have your virtual machine in, and where exactly the bot is configured to act on. So that is why we're getting this brute force attack on this virtual machines. Now, since all your virtual machines were left running, you will have brute force attack on all the virtual machines. However, in my case, you can see I intentionally have not configured public IP on all the virtual machines. I only configured the public IP on this virtual machine because I was using this virtual machine to simulate attack. But for rest of the virtual machines, A, they are always stopped deallocated. B, I only have public IP configured on this virtual machine because I was trying to simulate the attack. So virtual machines should not have public IP configured. But if you say that I have a requirement because on my virtual machine, I have deployed web services. And in the web services, I have configured an application which is meant for my consumers located across the globe. So it's a public website, public portal that I've configured. If that is the case, then definitely you need a public IP because your web services, your application will need a public IP. So you will need a public IP, you need a DNS name, you will need to bind your public IP with the DNS. When I say DNS here, I mean domain name. So you need a domain name, and you will need to bind your domain name with the public IP at your domain registrar. So in that case, what you will do, you will deploy a load balancer. So you will deploy a load balancer which will front end the virtual machine. So the public IP will be configured on the load balancer, and load balancer in behind the load balancer, you will have your web services. you will have this virtual machine which was configured with public IP. Now the load balancer will receive the request, and load balancer and the bot cannot compromise the load balancer because load balancer doesn't accept the request on 3389. So this is one thing that you can do. Second, you can deploy an edge perimeter or edge firewall, and behind the edge firewall you have the load balancer, and behind the load balancer you have the VM. So all the traffic that comes, all the traffic which is destined for this VM will first come through this firewall. Now this perimeter firewall is an intelligent firewall. It's a next gen firewall. It has DOS, DDoS, IDS, IPS, content, IP, FQDN, keywords, filtering, capability configured. Let the bot send the traffic. When the bot tries to send the traffic to this VM, it will first land on this firewall. The firewall has all the capability configured. Firewall will quickly capture that it's an anomaly because the request is either coming from the same IP address or from a different IP address, but on the same port. The same port is getting compromised. So firewall from its DOS, DDoS, IDS, IPS, or from this IP addresses or FQDN keyword filtering, content filtering will quickly identify that it's an anomaly. And firewall will quickly block this request, block this bot. And you will have your firewall logs getting ingested into Sentinel. So Sentinel will also create an alert against those logs so that your security team is well aware of the fact that there has been a DDoS attack. There has been some sort of attack targeted to our environment from a specific source. And you will take the action accordingly. What you will take the action? You will blacklist those IP addresses in the firewall, or you will have a conditional access policy configured at AD level so that nobody will be able to access that application. So this is what you can do. Now, this is all, whatever I'm telling you is something that does not relate to you as an operations team, does not relate to you as an engineering team, because this is the job of admins, the service admins. But you will need to work with them in collaboration. They cannot take all their decisions. You will need to, you will need to give them the sufficient input so that they can take a decision. And that input you will provide because you are investigating the incidents. So the incident that you see on the portal, which says brute force attack, you are investigating this incident. And that is how you are doing it. Now, why this brute force attack? Why there are multiple incidents? Why it did not group them into one incident? Because they were getting generated from different IP addresses. You click on any of the incident, you will see that the IP address is different, that the source is different. So when the source and IP is different, the incident will not be, grouped, so that you will always know how many incidents were there. And this is why you should never leave your virtual machines with public IP turned on overnight. Otherwise, you will see this. And this incident ID actually shows me how many incident has happened. So if I'm on the top over here, which is the beginning here, you can see 27th. This was my last brute force attack. 26, which was yesterday because I had my virtual machine turned off. A total of 779 incidents have been created. And I don't know how many events inside those incidents. That I will only get to know when I get into those incidents. So this is about the brute force attack, which was expected, which I knew was expected. Quentin, did it answer your question?
Yeah, I get that, but the one concern that I've got is, and the same is on yours, right? You've got entities there, the user account showing as NA, so it doesn't actually, it's not actually capturing if they're trying a different user name, or if they're trying to use one username and multiple passwords or what?
Yeah, you will not get that information. I'm saying if you want to get that information, for that you will need to modify your query. And since they are bots, the some information will be hidden. So if you really want to get to the detail of the information, you might want to expand your query to capture the information. But trust me, you will not be able to, because if it's a bot driven attack, the source, IP address, or device, everything will be hidden. You will not be able to get all of this information. And that is why, see, there are things which is beyond your control. And since this is beyond your control, you need to focus on what is in your control. And that is the best practice. So as I said, the best practice is not to have a public IP on the VM, even if you need your VM to be accessible over the internet because it contains an applications, configure the public IP on the load balancer, put the VM behind the load balancer, or
Yep.
configure the public IP on the firewall, put the VM behind the firewall. That way you can stop and you can contain those attacks.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this was about the brute force attack. Anything that has happened automatically, you will have very limited capabilities because, but we have also configured something. So let's go back to the last 24 hours. So what we have done, guys, in the last 24 hours, which is exactly yesterday, we've configured some analytics rule, and those analytics rule basically look for certain events, certain occurrences, and they will create an event. And as per the analytics rule configuration, those events will get converted into incident. That's what we did yesterday. And as part of that configuration, since this is a lab environment, I also simulated the attack. So I can see two incidents here. There are two incidents that I see in my portal. One is Azure portal brute force attack, and the second is attempt to sign in to disable accounts. These are the two incidents that I have. Now let's look into the details of these incidents and let's see how do we investigate and how do we troubleshoot an incident. So the very first thing that I will do, or the very first thing which an L1 does, or something who is below L1, like analyst, the very first thing that they will do is to assign that incident. So for example, this is the incident which says attempt to sign in to disable account. So they will select the incident. And so they'll click on the incident. Okay, give me a minute here. It's not working. Bear with me. It's running a bit slow. Okay. So the very first thing that they are going to do, I'm saying whosoever picks up the incident, there will be a team who will pick up the incident. The first thing that they need to do is to assign the incident to somebody who will be accountable and responsible to work on that incident, investigate that incident. So we'll select the incident, we'll select the severity. Now incident already has a severity, but this severity is coming from the automation. I'm saying the severity is coming from the analytics tool, but there's a high probability that in the operations, people who are allocating incidents to incident responders, or to the L1, L2 team members, they have been instructed to change the priority or severity of the incident depending on how many incidents are there on a specific day, what is the current workload. Uh, Based on those factors, they can change the priority or severity of the incident also. So for example, this is attempt to sign in to disable accounts. For me, this continues to remain a high priority incident. Then I'll select the user or group that I want to assign this incidents to. So when I click on search users or group, I'll see all the users, all the groups here. Probably I want to assign this incident to SOC operations team, right? Now SOC operations team has multiple team members. So when you are assigning the incident, you can either assign it to a group or to a specific person. So let's say I assign this incident to Ram Kumar, and then I'll change the incident status as active, and then I'll save it. I can also apply tag here. I'm saying if I have some tags, I can also apply tags here. So this is the first thing that I will do. I will activate the incident. So now the incident is active, it is assigned to somebody, and that person is responsible to work on this incident. If that person is logged into the portal, if that person has been configured an incident responder RBAC, that person will get the alert in the portal itself that an incident has been assigned to you. Now, imagine I'm that person. So the second thing that I'm going to do, that person will basically pick up the incident and look for the incident. So the person has now picked up the incident, and the person will see, first of all, unassigned owner. So person, now that the incident has been assigned, the person will now take the ownership of the incident. There is a high probability that I may be assigned 20 incidents, but I'm not in office today, or I'm not in a mood to work. So people cannot blame me for it. So I will need to take ownership. So the first thing, I'll take ownership of the incident. Now I've taken the ownership of the incident to myself, and then I can go ahead and investigate this incident. Now, sometimes we do the entire investigation, entire disposition of the incident here in the portal itself. Sometimes we have integration with ITSM solutions configured, which is ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, and these incidents are sent to ServiceNow and BMC Remedy through automation, through integration, and all the activities happens in ServiceNow and BMC Remedy. Over here, they will only do the investigation, but then they will just close the incident from here, and they will put all the remarks in the ServiceNow and BMC Remedy. So for each incident, there will be a respective incident ID that will get created in ServiceNow, and they will take care of it. So let's see how do we take care of it from here also, because we don't have integration with ServiceNow. Okay, so I have taken the ownership of the incident. Now, while I take the ownership of the incident, I can also lower the priority of this incident. Now, why I will be doing it? Because there is a high probability that in my operations, we have a compliance team. We have a separate team whose job is to ensure that high priority incidents are resolved. High priority incidents are given priority. You should not have a high priority incident aging more than 10 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. So MTTR. So there are some criterias. So I have picked up this incident. Now I'll lower the priority of this incident as medium so that there will not be any unnecessarily noise. I'm just telling you how do we resolve incidents, what actions we can perform from the Sentinel. Whether you do it in your operations or not, probably in the in DXC, you guys are not allowed to change the priority and severity of the incident. That is okay. But you need to understand that the capability of Sentinel, what all is possible in Sentinel. So I'll change the severity of the incident first. I pick up the incident. I've taken the ownership of the incident. Now this incident is in my bill. Okay. Now I will see the now I will investigate into this incident. So first at a high level, I can see some information about the incident. First, this is a brute force activity against Azure portal by highlighting multiple authentication failures from different locations. So what has happened? I'm saying this is a custom analytics rule that I have written, that we have written yesterday, and this incident is part of that rule. So what this rule is, now when you work on incidents, probably in the first few days, you will need to go through a lot of details before you share your final outcome of the incident, or before you close the incident, or before you forward the incident. But when you work with similar incident time and again, you will have that comfort level. You will have a template that you have created. You will quickly put the information in the template and send it to the next person to fix it, because this incident is related to a brute force attack on Azure Active Directory. It's related to Azure Active Directory, wherein somebody has tried to sign in. from different locations using different IP addresses, but they were just not successful. So this has something to do with the entities, with the identities, Azure AD identities. So as as an operations team member, I may not have access to Azure Active Directory to take an action. I will quickly collate the information, write it down. Maybe I'm using a separate solution like Jira or ServiceNow. I'll just write down my observation and send it and create a task and send it to the other person to take care of it. So let's see what I can see. So the alert product name is Microsoft Sentinel. This is coming from Sentinel. There are two events here. One alert, no bookmark. Now, when you click on these two events, you will see the events. So this is where you will run the query and you can see there are two events. Basically, there are two identities involved here in this incident. Ravi Kumar and Kishan Kumar. These are the two identities involved. Let's go back. Now, while you are investigating the incident, it is not that you are only investigating this incident. You would probably want to know if there had been similar incidents in the past related to these users, because you also want to analyze the behavior of these users. So what I would rather do, I would rather put a custom time. I would rather see that has there been any incident related to these users in the past 7 days. I know that it has happened yesterday, but has there been any incident in the past 7 days related to these users? Wow, there has been multiple. So I can see it is not first time. There has been multiple incidents here. Okay, let me see. From a custom time range from 17th and run this query. Okay, these are the incidents. So the very first incident that occurred, these are all the incident that has happened. Now I'll go back to my incident, which is Kishan and Ram. I can see that these are two new users. There had not been any incident related to these identities in the past. This has only happened once, which was yesterday. So this is my first thing that I'm doing to check whether similar incidents has occurred in the past related to the same identities, related to the same service, related to the same resource, because it will differ from incident to incident. So related to the same identity, same service, same resource. No, this has happened for the first time. I'm making observations and I'm writing down these observations because I need to share it with the next person. So no, it has not happened. Now I'll come back and I will see last 24 hours once again, run the query. Okay, so Kishan Kumar and Ravi Kumar are two identities. Okay, now this will give me a lot of information here in the query itself, because the entire intelligence that is being fed into Sentinel is coming from the same query. So either I see that in the UI or I see here on the screen, it is one and the same thing. So I can see my identity is Kishan Kumar. Kishan Kumar is Azure AD user. This is the UPN of Kishan Kumar. And Kishan Kumar has got two IPs. So there are two IPs involved here, two IPs involved. And if I look at locations, there are two locations involved, India and US. If I look at the UPN, I see the UPN of Kishan Kumar also. And locations. I don't see the IP address here, but I will see that into the incident. So I can see that this identity tried to log in to Azure portal from India and from US. And in both the attempts, this ID was unsuccessful. And that constitutes the brute force attack as per the query. Because my query will only generate an event, and then Sentinel will convert that event into an incident when there is an identity or where there are identities trying to log into Azure portal from various locations within a specific time frame. And for all the attempts, it is a failure. And for all the attempts, it is a failure. So there were failure attempts from these two identities from two locations, India and US, which constitutes the brute force attack. Let's look for the Ravi Kumar also here. Is that the same behavior with Ravi Kumar also? So if I look at the Ravi Kumar, it is also India and US. Why this is India and US? Because I am the one who simulated this attack. I logged into my Azure VM, which is configured in East US. And from that VM, I tried to log in to Azure portal using both the identities by providing incorrect password to simulate this attack. And then I also logged into Azure portal from my local system, which is in India. And that's how this attack was simulated. And Sentinel picked it up and Sentinel created an incident. So I picked up this information that yes, there are two user identities which are involved here. Now I'll go back to Sentinel. So I'll go back to the same. Okay. So we're back here. Now you can see two events I've seen. What those two events are related to? Okay, not this one. This one. Okay, this. Okay. So I've seen the two events that these two events are related to two users, Kishan Kumar and Ravi Kumar. And alerts, if I click on alerts, I will also see the alerts here that how many alerts got generated. So it is running the query once again. I'm saying you can, every time you click on anything, it will take you back to the KQL because KQL is the source of power. KQL is what is giving you the information. Here's the system alert ID. This is the alert ID. This alert got generated. Now you will see the alert related information when the alert was generated. So the alert was generated on this time frame, and you will see specific information related to the alert only. Right? So processing time, end time, the alert was generated. The starting time was 3:45 and 4:45 was the end time because what I did this activity in some interval. And you will see all the information here, workspace subscription ID, workspace ID. So you will see the you will see the product which is getting compromised. So this is my subscription, which is getting compromised. All of this information you will see here. Tactics is unknown. Why it says unknown? Because you have not configured it while you created the custom analytics rule. If you have added the tactics here, then it would have shown the tactics, which is like initial access, brute force attack. So this is my alert. I'll go back. In a production environment where you have multiple incidents to work on, you will definitely will not get into this detail. But I'm just helping you to understand what all you can do in Sentinel. Okay. Then comes the last updated time. When was the last updated time? Today's time, local time it shows. And the creation time. This happened yesterday at this time. So I was actually doing it last night to simulate this attack. These are the entities which are involved. So I see a couple of, now these entities are based on what we have configured. You've configured a maximum of 5 entities in an analytics rule. And for each entity, you can configure 10 sources. Okay. Then it says incident workbook, analytics rule. This is the analytics rule, which is triggered here. This is the incident link. You can share this incident link with people. They can directly get the information about it. And this is the last comment. This is the last comment. So you see the last comment, it says user Kishan Kumar was disabled in Azure ADY playbook. Now leave this part. I'll come to this part later on because I also have automation configured here because this brute force attack is very critical to my environment. I cannot just wait. If this attack happens last night at 2 o'clock, I cannot wait to afford I cannot afford to wait till 9 o'clock next morning when the team comes and picks up this attack. No, that's not possible. So that is why you will see here that we have taken some automation. That's okay. Let's investigate. So let's click on view full details. Whenever you will work on an incident, you will always click on full details. And here you will see everything. So this is my full detail page. I will see everything. And this is what I changed. I changed the medium severity to medium. status to new, take myself as an owner on this incident. Then this is the information that I was looking at. All of this information, some comment is also there that I will read later on. Now I want to investigate. So when I click on investigate, I can click on investigation here, and this is the revamped portal that will give me all the information. This is the power of Sentinel, that it gives you graphical interface. I'm saying you can see various options, various methods through which you can investigate this incident. So you can see this is my Azure portal. This is my center of attraction, Azure portal. And from Azure portal, I can see all of these users. Now this is Kishan Kumar. When I click on Kishan Kumar, I'll see the information. So this is one of the user, and here I see all the related alerts. So when I click on the user, I'll see all the information. Since this was a simulated attack, it only happened once. But in a general attack, it will happen multiple times. It will happen from multiple IPs. You will have at least 100, 200, 500,000 locations triggering the attack at the same time, because it's a bot driven attack. But since it was I simulated this attack, I have very limited information here. So you can see the information that you can click on more and you will see all the information here: process running on host, user accounts created, service created. All of this information you can see here. That will give you enough information. You can click on info also. The same information you see here related to this, because you've selected Kishan. So you will see the timeline here. This is the timeline when this attack was triggered. This attack was triggered yesterday at this time. I'm saying it started at this time. These are the entities which are involved in this attack. So you see Kishan Kumar, Ravi Kumar, entities. This is the insight. Insight is not available for this. And if you want to take any help over here, so you see all the information here. Now, similarly, you can see for the other user, and you will see when you select the other user, this information will change. So you can see it for Ravi Kumar, I'm saying for this user, and you will see a lot of information here because we've configured some information for Ravi. Depending on how user is created, what all information is available for the user, you will see it here. You can see Ravi Kumar, this is the UPN suffix, this is the tenant ID, this is the user ID. You will see all the information here, friendly name, all of the information here related to this. So this is the place that will help you to investigate the incident. You can see all the information. Now next is the IP, because you have configured the entities while you created the analytics rule. So your entities that you have configured was the UPN, which is the name of the user, name UPN, and as well as host and IP address. So let's see the host information. Now these are related alerts, related 24 alerts. Why there are 24 alerts? Because ever since I configured this, this analytics rule, I was checking for the viability of this analytics rule. So a total of 24 times this has happened. More information you can see here, all of this information. So you will see all the information here. Whenever you click on the log, it will just generate a query and you will see the relevant information coming for it. So it's running the query. It's not getting the information, so I would rather select the time frame as last 24 hours. Or maybe the specific information is not available against this because I've not configured the entity for it. So I'll go back. Okay, so I'm back here. So basically, this is the place which will help me to identify, which will help me to resolve, get more details of this incident. And I can also do the correlation with additional information which is available. Since this is a simulated attack, not much information is available. Once you have collected all the information, here it will show you the overview of the incident, that when this incident was started, the timeline of the incident. Uh, so since I have an automation rule which has actually blocked this incident, as soon as it got triggered, my automation rule got also triggered, which has blocked this activity. So it could not continue. Otherwise, you will see all the timelines of the incident here. But at least you will see the timeline, which is that when was this incident generated, all the information. So here you will see the entities, that these are the two entities, two IP addresses that you see here, because that's what you have configured. So you will see the IP addresses also. Now this information is not coming. It is not picking up this information. So sometimes it doesn't pick up this information. Sometimes it picks up all the information. It says host were not found. So this is an anomaly that I have seen in the past as well, but it is not permanent. As I said, right now it is not picking up the IP addresses here, but we have IP address query in my query. So it is showing as blank, it is not picking it up, but you will see the IP addresses, all the information here. To typically what you see, you will see the country. City you may not see. Even if you see the city, it may not be accurate all the time. And you will, so city and state may not be accurate, but you will see the country and you will see the IP address also. So here it is not showing the IP address. Let's see the host, if it gets me some details. Okay, so it is not also giving me, it is not giving me this detail at this moment. And as I said, sometimes this detail doesn't come, but in a production environment, you will see all the details here. So you will see the OS type, OS version. Now OS type will be correct, OS version will be incorrect. Is domain joined? No, you will not get this information. Even if you get this information, don't go by this information because it may be incorrect. Net BIOS name may be incorrect. However, the IP address that you will get will be correct all the time. IP address will be correct, but there is a probability that they are using IP masking also. So hackers mask the IP address. You will not get their actual IP address. You will get a generic IP address. So that's the another thing that you need to be careful of. Okay. Now Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, no vulnerabilities related to this host, related to the device, because there is a high probability that Ravi is using a domain joined device. This attack is getting triggered from a domain joined device, an Azure AD joined device, and on that Azure AD device, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is installed. So if it was installed, then it would have given you information about endpoint data also. Maybe the endpoint will basically give you the intelligence that the device is compromised. Device may have a bot on it. So you will get all of this information like this. Then you will see the timeline. So here's the timeline, because as soon as this got generated, my automation disabled, my automation took care of it. So you will only see this. And then you also see the insights. So in a proper, production environment, you will see all of it. Okay. So let's say I have gathered all the information that I needed to. I have got to know that this incident was generated by two identities, which means two identities are compromised. I've got the information, creation time, IP address, all the information I've got. So I've got all the information. Now with this information, what I will do, I will make a note, right? And with this information, I will send it to the I'll take the action as per the SOP which is there. So I will either send it to the next level, or if I have the capability, I'll take the decision. Since this is related to identities, definitely I will not have I will not have the capability. So I would rather send it to the AD team, the one who manages the AD team. Now here you will see all the information related to. So this basically shows you what has happened related to this identity. So right now, because this was related to Kishan Kumar, so Kishan Kumar, this is the additional information that you're looking at. So right now the status of Kishan Kumar is disabled. Now why this is disabled? Because I have a playbook configured here, and that playbook, what it does, as soon as an incident is generated related to brute force attack, the playbook will trigger and it will disable the user. And that's why the user was disabled. The status you see is disabled, so that the user will not, so that the user or the same host will not be able to trigger that attack again and again. Because if they continue to trigger it, there is a high probability that they may get succeeded in getting access to my environment. So I've disabled that identity then and there. So that's the information you are getting here. Now here you see the timeline for the identity. So you can see the timeline that what has happened here, that last night, I'm saying now you see the times here. The user signed into an Azure resource. The user signed in, you can see 12 times, you can see here. The user signed into Microsoft Azure Active Directory 12 times. All of this information is start time, end time. The user has reset an account password. So basically what I did, since I don't remember the password of this user and I needed to trigger the attack. So first I reset the password for this user. So this is what you can see. The password was reset. The user account password was reset and the user signed into an Azure resource. After the password was reset, the user signed in. So you will see all the information related to this user and any alert and anomalies over the time related to this user, because I've also configured the, so you can see the anomalies and alert, anything related to this user, change password, this password was changed, alert. I'm saying you will have a lot of information and this information will change from incident to incident. You will not see the same level of information for all the incidents depending on the nature of that incident and the entities configured in the query to fetch data. You will see the information. So you can see the expected count, result description, anomalies, sign in timelines. You can see the anomalies for this user, that the first day this user signed in was on 19th, between 18th and 19th, because that's where on the second day of the training we created the users. And then since then this user has been signing in, and these are the number of times that this user has been signed in over a period of time. So you will see all the information, resources that it used, UBA insights, all of this information is coming for this user. So a lot of capabilities are there in the portal, which will help you to investigate the incidents that you have. Now, once you are done with your investigation, as I said, you will have an option to assign it. So I continue to do the investigation. I'm saying there are more probabilities here. You can see now this is where I'm on the playbook, so I don't want to get into this. Okay, so I'll close this. And let's say I'm done with the incident. Now, what action I want to take? So these are the actions that you can see all of this information. Now, once I'm done with my investigation, once I've taken the notes of it, if I have the capability, I can also take some action. What my action is, I can run a playbook. So if I have the capability, if I have access to a playbook, I can quickly run a playbook. Now this is in preview, which means this is not in GA. These are the playbooks which are available. And if I have the playbook contributor role, I can select one of the playbook and I can run this playbook also. That's one option that I have. So probably the playbook is not integrated into the analytics rule itself. Playbook is created and playbooks are available for incident. Playbooks are available to incident responders. Playbooks are automation. It is made available to incident responders and they have access to it. See, I'm logged in using the admin user. So I'm seeing these playbooks. But if you're logging in using a specific RBAC, then you may not be able to see these playbooks. But typically, depending on the process in a company, sometimes they allow L1 resources to remediate the incident by running a specific playbook, or they only allow them to forward it to the next level. So I can select a playbook and I can run it also for this alert. So let's say these are the playbooks that I have. So there is one playbook which is email. So I have a playbook for AWS wherein if there is any activity happens in AWS, an email alert will be thrown. So probably I will run this playbook. So see, I'm triggering the playbook as part of this investigation or as part of my closing comments. I have triggered the playbook. Now, whatever action is there in the, so playbook is triggered successfully. Now, whatever is the configuration or automation configured in this playbook, it will get triggered and the appropriate action will happen. So I can run the playbook. That's my options. I can create an automation rule. I'm saying I can create a playbook also here in the portal, or I can create a team also. Along with that team, I will investigate because there's a high probability that I may not have all the access and knowledge, both. I do not have all the access and I also do not have all the skills to investigate it. So I can also create a team add more team members and we will collectively investigate it. So these are the possibilities which are there. Now, once this part is done, now here you see the activity logs also. Activity logs in terms of what has been done so far. So this is my incident activity log. Now it will start from here, read it from the bottom. So you can see the activity log here, and here you will put your comments. So incident was created on this time. Comment created, so leave this part. Automation rule run. Owner was changed. You can see now this incident was created last night, and this morning when we picked it up, the incident owner was changed to Ram Kumar by Raghu Singh. I'm saying this is the owner of the subscription, by default the Sentinel owner. So the incident was owner was changed. Then Ram Kumar was incident severity was changed to medium. Since I'm logged in with this user, it will always say my name only. So the incident severity was changed, and then the some playbook was triggered also with this incident. So these are the incident activity logs. Then what all activities are performed. Now I'm going to close this incident, or I'm going to forward this incident to the next person. So what I will do, I will put a comment that I'm saying you will just put comment as per the SOP. So I looked into this incident. It seems that two identities, Azure AD user, two identities are compromised. All the relevant information is available in the incident. Please find below some of the key pointers. So here you will write your key pointers. I'm saying you can do this activity here, or you can do this activity in the service now, whichever your company follows. So you will provide the specific counters, IP address, whatever information you want to provide. And then as part of initial remedial measure, I have run, I have triggered, and then you will like the playbook name, playbook. Assigning the incident to L3 or service. So you will type your comment. Your comments have been put, and now you will close this comment box. And you will close this also. Investigation, you have done it. These are the actions. Some of them are in preview, so you don't need to worry about it. And now you will not close this incident. What you will do, you will change the owner. That's what you're going to do. So these are the owners. I'm saying you will see all the people here. So if you know that uh, Radha Kumari is the Azure AD admin, and this incident needs to be looked into by Radha now, because you have done the initial trials, you have taken the remedial measures, you will assign it to Radha. Now Radha will get a notification that an incident has been assigned to her, and she will work on this incident. So that's what you have done. Now, when Radha will log into the incident, she will click on few details, and the very first thing that Radha will do is to look into the activity log, so that she will know what all activities have been performed on this incident so far, who has done what. All of this information Radha will get, and then she'll take the action accordingly. Now let's see the playbook that we have, that this user has run. What was the impact of that playbook? So I log into my email. So you can see the playbook. This is the playbook that the user has run, S3 bucket. So As part of that playbook, somebody has been notified. Now, probably the L1 team member can assign the incident to another person and also run this playbook so that the person is also notified through an email or the team is notified. So you will configure a playbook that will have the capability to send an email to somebody. Now, this email can be sent to a distribution list also, or this email you can put in the sender address. For example, in the recipient address, it is my address. Now, if you put a DL, then all the people, all the mailboxes which are part of that DL will receive this email. You can also put integration here. I'm saying if your service now BMC Remedy has the capability to create an incident based on input that it receives from a specific email address, you can put the email address of your service now in BMC Remedy also. So that this will get so this as part of this email, an incident or incident will be created into service now also. So this is one automation that the user has done, that the user has triggered a playbook that has sent an email. Now this playbook is actually meant for AWS. That is why you see all of this information. So you can create a sample playbook wherein a playbook for all the teams, and user can select the playbook for the specific team. Let's say there is a sample playbook for AD team. So you can write the information in that playbook about the AD team, and then they will receive the information. Since this is for AWS, that's why it says, hi admin, an S3 bucket has been exposed, an incident has been created. Kindly look into this on priority. Best regards, Sentinel operations team. So this was the result of that playbook that the user has triggered. So we'll go back to Sentinel. Now, this is what you are doing as part of as part of investigating the incident. So you have done the investigation, you have collated the information, you have taken the notes, put that into the incident activity log. You have changed the status of the incident, changed the severity of the incident, assigned somebody else as the owner because it is beyond your capability to resolve this incident. And if required, you've also sent this incident to a third party solution, which is BMC Remedy, Jira Service now. This is about incident investigation. There is no hard rule, there is no thumb rule to it. It will differ from incident to incident. And the more you investigate, the more comfort level you will get with various properties related to an incident, because this is related to Azure portal. Now the incident related to private endpoint or network security group will have separate parameters. So for any person who wants to be able to investigate incidents in Azure portal, it is expected that the person should have a good comfort level or should at least have basic knowledge about Azure services, about their configuration, so that the person will understand. So this was about the incident investigation, wherein we have investigated an incident, and since we could not close it, we have basically assigned an incident to someone else. Similarly, let's look at the other incident, which is attempt to sign into disabled accounts. So there has been an attempt to sign into a disabled account. So I'll pick up this incident now, and this incident, the owner is myself. I'm say I have assigned this incident to myself, or maybe I'll pick up this incident. And here, this incident only got created this morning. You can see creation time 9:20. So because I had my portal open, the the portal, the incognito mode open, and on that incognito mode, this user was configured. Okay, so this incident, you can see this is new. So as part of the process, I will first assign this incident to myself. I've assigned this incident to myself. I'll change the status of the incidents as active so that people know that this has been picked up. I'll change the severity if I wish. I'll make it low severity because it's a disabled account. Okay, and then I'll click on view full details. Same information I will get. Now here you can see it is picking up the IP addresses and everything. So as I said, there are times due to some synchronization or refresh issues, it will not pick up the IP address, but there is absolutely nothing wrong in our query because I have used the same query everywhere and it is working fine. So here you can see, now you see a different information because it's a different information. different incident. Now, this incident is related to a disabled account. So a disabled identity tried to sign into Azure portal. This is what this incident is. So you can see it says identifies failed attempts to sign into disabled accounts across multiple Azure applications. And there has been two events, one alert. This is the identity. Here's the IP address. And you can see there are multiple IP addresses here also. And this is initial access status. So all of this information is here. Now you can see this incident was created at this time. If you look into the entities, here's the user who tried to sign in. So you will see the user, you will see the IP address, and there are two IP addresses here. If I click on the first IP address, I can see, okay, this IP address is Microsoft organization, Washington, Virginia, North America, United States, publishing. Why is this coming? Because the host is Azure Virtual Machine. Because this IP address belongs to an Azure Virtual Machine. I used an Azure Virtual Machine to sign in to Azure portal using this account to show you the capabilities here. So I'm getting some information. Now you will not get all of this information all the time. So in some scenarios you will get it, in some scenarios you will not get it when the information is masked by the hackers. So you can see the last activity, the first scene it was 9:20. It was seen here. The last scene here, this is the date. The data source is security alert. Host name, you will not find it because it is not there. So you will see all the options here. Timeline, you will see the timelines here. If you click on the other IP address, you will see the information of this IP address also. Okay, here you can see this IP address is from India. I'm saying since this I did it from my own laptop. So from my own laptop, I tried to sign into Azure using this disabled account. So you can see city is Delhi, state is Delhi, continent is Asia, country is India, organization is Kumar Network, which is incorrect. So I don't know how come it is picking up this name, but there nothing exists with this name Kumar Networks. So you will see the information here. If you want to see the full details, you can click on full details, and then you will see the full details about this information that you clicked on, about this IP address. And this will also show you if the same IP address has been used in the past or same IP address has been involved in other incidents also, because Microsoft Sentinel has this capability to correlate, to do the correlation from other incidents. So any incident which is currently open in the portal, I'm not talking about new incidents. Any incident which is currently open means active, any active incident which is there, and if that incident also has this entity present, you will also see the correlation here. So you can see here, this is the geographical information about this. And here you see security alerts too, and you will see all the information that last night, there were two times, in total 4 times this alert came, and then this morning also came all of the information, IP address, remote connection. It says no information here. You will see all the information. And then you will have an option to run the playbook also. So this is the information. Now let's say this is a disabled account. So this is the information that we are getting. We can click on it and view full details. We can take action. So we can click on investigate also, and it will take us to the graph model. So there are multiple options here. I see my name, incident, severity, attempt, all the information. Now I see the the UPN suffix, the IP addresses, all the information also here. And here I can see all the related information, info, whatever I select, I'll see the info for that. So if you select this, I'll select the info here, select the info here, all of this information, and this is the place where was the sign-in attempt happened. So this is the target. So this is the target where the attempt happened. You can see the target information also. All of this information you will see here. And here you can see the playbook also. As I said, if you have a playbook, the playbook will be shown here. So for this, there is no playbook to run. You can see all the information. So for this, I know that this user is already disabled. So what I will do, I will just investigate this. I will put into the activity log. Incident short, incident investigated, root cause identified, appropriate action taken. This is how smart people write when they are not in a mood to work, when they are running late, when their shift is getting over, they quickly write this and put these comments. So I would not encourage you to write these comments because it does not tell anything to anyone. What did you investigate? What root cause did you identify? What action did you take? Nobody knows anything. So never ever put this. I've just put it just to show you that we can put this is how we put the activity log. And once we are done with the activity log, as I said, I'll close this and I'll come. Okay, I'll close the Sentinel. I'll come back to the incident and I'll change the incident. So this was the incident. So right now, you can see two incidents. These are the open incident, new incident. You can click on it. Right now we've selected. So then I'm saying we can just select the incident, whatever status we want to say. Let's say I want to close this incident. So while closing this incident, I also need to give the information that since I'm closing this incident, was it a true positive, which means yes, it was a suspicious activity, suspicious but expected, false positive, incorrect alert logic, or false positive. So you will see all the information here, or undetermined. So if you put undetermined, it means that you are not able to investigate it properly. You don't know the root cause of it. So we'll put it true positive. Yes, it was a suspicious activity. And you can put the user account is the user account seems to have been compromised. The Azure AD admin team has been informed. Closing the incident. So you can put the status as closed. So I will also click on this. Now I will also see the closed incidents. So this incident on the top has been closed. Attempt to sign into disabled account. And if you click on the closed incident, you will also see the information, all the information about the closed incident, comment, all of this information. You can click on few details and you can see the information. You can see the activity log. So it is not that the incident is closed and you will not be able to see the information related to the incident. You will see all the information. You can see the last comment, which is I just closed this incident at 10:03 and I put the closing reason as yes, it's true positive suspicious activity. So that's how you can do it. I'm open to questions if you have any, guys. This is how we basically deal with incident. I hope in DXC, participants who are part of operations team, they also follow similar steps to basically work on incidents and take similar steps, take appropriate actions. Let me know if you have any questions from incident investigation. Now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So this is my critical VM, Azure Monitor Log. On this critical VM, I have a network security group, which is front-ending the VM, and any traffic that is destined for this VM has to go through this network security group. And at present, this VM accepts traffic from internet on port 3389, where when the source says any, it also means internet. And I have intentionally created an NSG rule here, which is allow any WIN RM inbound on port 5986 from internet to this VM. This rule I have created. Now this rule can make my VM vulnerable to security incidents, because when I allow this port, people can, I'm say anybody from the internet will be able to connect to my VM on this port, and they will be able to remotely control my VM. So it's a suspicious activity. It's an attack that I've just simulated on the VM. Right now, as part of this attack, what will happen? There will be a log that will get created. So this will create an activity log, which is created here. You can see get network interface effective security group, update alert rule. So this is the logs which are getting created. Now these logs will be sent to Sentinel. Why they are going to the Sentinel? Because we have activity log ingestion configured in the Sentinel. So these logs will go to the Sentinel, and in the Sentinel, we have this rule, which is basically, this rule is basically looking for any NSG changes. And this rule, the data source for this rule is Azure activity. So this rule is looking for activity changes on the NSGs. If there is any configuration change on the NSG that results successful, this rule will basically pick up that change, create an alert, and then create an incident from that alert. This is what this rule does. So I have intentionally simulated this attack. Now I'll go to incidents and see whether an incident has been created or not because of this attack. So whenever you want to simulate an attack, you will first put some injection, some vulnerability into your into your data source, which is what I have just did by changing the NSG, by adding an NSG rule into the VM. And then you will need to go to the analytics rule, edit the analytics rule, and make some configuration changes in the analytics rule and save it. When you do it, the rule will get triggered. As soon as you save a rule, it gets triggered once, and then based on the schedule that you have configured, it will then trigger accordingly. So as soon as you edited the rule got triggered, and I can get this incident, which is critical VM network security group change. So I've got the incident. So I'll pick up the incident, assign it to myself. I'll change the incident status from new to active. I'll change now the severity of the incident is medium. I would keep it rather high, low, or keep it as it is. And then I will go to the view full details, and try and investigate this incident. Now I'm investigating this incident. I can see that this activity was performed by this user. This is the UPN, this is the user. And when I click on it, I'll see all the information about this user. The name of the user is this. This is the UPN, and deleted account. It says false, which means the NSG was not deleted, but some changes were made to the NSG. So all of this information, so this information is not relevant. Why? Because in the user property, in Azure Active Directory, in the user property, this information is not available. Otherwise, you would have seen this information coming from Active Directory also in the activity log. So you will see the information based on what you have configured for the account. Okay, this is the IP address from where the attack was triggered, attack was simulated. So you can see this IP address is from India, and this attack, the first scene was this. This is the last scene, 1024 is when I simulated this attack. So all of this information you can see here. This is the resource. This is the actual resource on which the attack was simulated. So you can see the actual resource here. Now, since this resource is a network, since this resource is a network interface card, obviously for a network interface card, you will not see the heartbeat, you will not see this OS, because network interface card does not have this properties. These are common fields. So sometimes you will find these fields empty because the specific incident or the associated entity does not relate to these fields. That's why they are empty. So you will see all the information here. Now you want to see the resource ID, read this, you will get to know. This is the subscription ID. Till here, this is the subscription ID. Then the resource group is Microsoft Sentinel. The provider is Microsoft Network. The service, the resource is network interface. And here's the resource name, which is Azure Monitor Law 988. So if you see here, this is the VM networking. And this is the network interface where the modifications was done, which is Azure Monitor Law 988. So this is the network interface which is in question because your network security groups, public and private IP, all are configured at network interface. So this is the subject in question. So we get all the details. Okay, on this it was changed. Now the question is what exactly was changed? That information will not be available here. That you will need to identify from the service itself. So you will need to go to that service to identify what was changed, and that information will be available with the admin of the service. Admin will always know what is the current configuration or default configuration of the service, and admin will quickly identify that, okay, the configuration got modified. We see an additional NSG rule getting created. So admin will delete that email, delete that rule. So this is what you can do in this case. If you click on investigate, you will see similar information here. So this is my critical, this is my subject, and this is the information. So here's the user, here's the resource ID, here's the IP address. So you can click on the resource ID, let's say, and you see the host name and friendly name of that resource. You can click on the user and you will see the user information also. So this is where you do the investigation. You want to see the full details of the resource, just uncheck it, check the user, click on few details. And here you can see the few details about this resource. It will show you any changes that has been made to this resource in the last couple of days based on based on the time frame that you have put here. So I can put the time frame, let's say last 30 days. It will give me all the alerts, events, and anomalies. So yes, there has been some changes that has been done. You can see on this resource on July 11th and 12th, some changes were also, some alerts and anomalies are there. Some two security alerts are there on this resource on July 11th and 10th and 11th also. And then 16th and 17th July also. You will see some changes on this. So this is how you can see the details of it. The resource, here the resource is in question is this. Now, in this, I'm saying in this type of incidents, as a level 1 team member, you hardly have anything to do because network security group control will be with the network contributor, the networking team. So what you will do, you will at the max will run a playbook. So if you have a playbook, I'm saying there are two options to do it. You can run a playbook. Now you don't see a playbook here. So you will not run the playbook from here. You will close this and you will click on incident action and run playbook over here. Here you will see all the playbook. So let's say we have a playbook which is destined for my networking team. Now this is what I have recently configured in at one of the client, that the client has teams running in isolation. Teams don't talk to each other, or teams are configured across the geographies. So their networking team is across the geography, and they don't like to talk to the security team, let's say. So or their time zone is different. So what I've configured playbook to send emails. Instead of assigning network team members as owner of the incident or network team security group as owner of the incident, because then they will take time to pick it up, I've actually configured a playbook. So what that playbook does, whenever any incident related to networking comes, the level 1 engineer is to pick up that incident, look at the details of the incident, put that into the activity log, the details into the activity log, the initial triage information, and then triggered a run book. And so this is then trigger a run book. And then trigger a run book, and that run book will then take action. That run book will go ahead and send an email to the appropriate team. So I created 7 runbooks, one for each team. They'll just need to select the runbook, which is network admin team, security admin team, Azure Active Directory team, database team. So they'll just trigger a runbook. That runbook will send an email to the DL of that team, and then now the incident is in their bin. And what this person will do, this person will trigger the runbook, and after triggering the runbook, this person will change the owner to the distribution to the security group of that team. So let's say the security group is, let's say, Sentinel admin. Then the person will change the owner as Sentinel admin. That's it. Done. And now networking team will make the appropriate changes, whatever changes they need to do, whatever forensics they need to do. And then one of the networking team member will come back to this incident, close the incident by putting appropriate comments. So let's say they are putting the comments, looked into the incident. An NSG rule allowing access from internet on port 5689 was configured by an identity deleted the NSG rule and instructed the identity to connect with networking team in future for any changes to VM network configuration and close it. So that's what they will do. They will close this activity. That's it. So this incident is also closed, and since the level engineer also triggered a runbook, which was supposed to send an email to the networking team. Probably the networking team by now have received the email also. So I do not see that email. Maybe that has not yet come, but you will also see an email. See, email has come. So it says, hi admin team, a new incident is created in Azure Sentinel. Please log into check more. Now, since this is a common email that I've configured for the lab, but in the production environment, you can configure multiple emails based on the team that it is designated to, and you can configure the specific information. In fact, into the email, you can also put the incident ID. You can also put some reference to the incident. You put the information in the email body also. When we do the automation, probably on Monday, first thing in the morning, then I'll show you how do we put all of this information, how do we create a runbook, a logic app, runbook or playbook, and how do we configure it with an analytics rule. All that I'll show you. So that's how this is done. So I have shown you, I have simulated 3 attacks on my environment. As a result of those attacks, 3 different incidents were created. I have shown you how to investigate into those incidents, how to look for relevant information, how to navigate through various options which are available, how to put the information into the activity log, how to assign that incident or forward that incident to some other owner, and how to close the incident, and how to run the appropriate automation rule if it is available, any runbook which is available that you have access to take the corrective action. So that's what I have shown you, and that is all that I want to cover when it comes to the investigation. I'm open to questions if you have any.
Hi Raghuveer, I have a question related to this playbook. The playbook is creating that Azure admin or it is offering by the Microsoft?
You said which playbook?
Uh, you There is one option you have taken the cursor incident action, and in the below there is a run playbook.
Guys, are others not able to hear her properly? For me, it's breaking. I'm saying I'm just not able to hear her properly. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm just
Hmm.
asking the playbooks that Azure admin or the one who is creating incident, that person need to create manually as per their requirement, or that Microsoft will be offering that playbooks.
No, no. So similar to analytics rule, you have
Yeah.
some out of the box playbooks and some custom playbooks that you create. The playbook that I have shown so far, all the playbooks, they are custom created. They are not Microsoft offered. Microsoft
Okay.
offers playbook as part of the solution. So, for example, if you go to a specific solution in the content hub, you will see some playbooks. Uh, so let's say if I navigate to Azure Activity Log Solution, so I'll go to Content Hub. Some solutions have playbooks available and some solutions do not have. And playbook is a custom requirement. I mean, say you have some criteria in mind, you have some steps in mind that you don't want to wait for your people to do it. You want that to be taken automatically. For that, we create playbook. So, for example, if I go to installed solutions, now you can see here we have installed solution with the name Azure Activity. Does it have a playbook? You can see it has 12 analytics rule, one workbook, one connector, and 14 hunting query. There is no playbook in this solution. Then we go to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Does it have a playbook? No, there is no playbook here. Then I'll go to Azure Network Security Group. Does it have a playbook? No. And there is no playbook here also. I'll go to Azure Storage. Does it have a playbook? No. I'll go to Azure Active Directory. Does it have a playbook? Yes. This has playbook. This is Azure Storage is selected. It is not refreshing. Okay, Azure Active Directory. Does it have a playbook? Yes. There are 11 playbooks in this solution. So I can also pick up those playbooks which are available, or I can create my custom playbooks. Now, I'm somebody who typically creates a custom playbook because the default playbooks which are available by the solution, A, they are complicated, B, they do not serve the specific purpose. For example, if I go to playbooks here, these are the playbooks. So you have playbooks like revoke Azure AD sign-in session entity trigger. Depending on the 59 analytics rule that you have, you will have some playbooks here. For example, there's a playbook that says block Azure AD user incident, block Azure AD user entity. It says in use. So I have actually used this playbook, but I modified it based on my requirement. The way when you create an analytics rule, out of the box analytics rule, you have the option to modify the query. You have the option to modify the configuration. So what I have done, I am using these playbooks, but I have completely modified them. I am just using the syntax from here, but I have done the modification based on my requirement. So some playbooks are there. For example, block Azure AD user alert. Now that those users who were trying to put brute force attack on my environment, I can disable those users using this playbook also. But I'm not using it. I've created my own playbook. That is easy for me. And I can make changes to my playbook easily. So you can take advantage of the out of the box playbooks which are available in a solution. If one of the playbook makes sense to your specific situation or requirement, else you can create your own playbook. Now the question is, where do I create playbook? So you basically create playbook in Logic app. So Logic app is the service where you will create playbook. This I will cover on Monday. And the reason I will be covering it on Monday, because you will have Saturday and Sunday. I cannot teach you how Logic app works because we need to stick to the Sentinel and you know, we have a set agenda to cover. But these 2 days will give you an advantage to revise everything and to also study about logic app. So these are the playbooks which are there. See, I have a couple of playbooks. I have a playbook to start the VM, to stop the VM. Now, I'm not using all of these playbooks in this lab, but I have some playbooks. For example, if there's a VM that gets compromised, I would want to stop that VM so that the malware or any infection which is there in the VM, any bot which is there in the VM is not able to spread to the network. So I'll stop the VM. I have a playbook to start the VM also. For example, if there's a critical VM, all of a sudden it has sudden increase in resource utilization. CPU memory all goes 99%. It could be a result of attack, some attack which is triggering the resource consumption, and hence the VM is at 99%. So what will I do? I'm say my application is getting impacted. So what I will do, I have a playbook that will stop the VM and start the VM. So both the playbooks will run in the order. First, the VM will be stopped, and then the VM will be restarted. Similarly, I have additional playbooks like for emails. Anything that happens in AWS, there's a separate playbook. Anything that happens, there's a separate playbook. This is the playbook that I have created for blocking the user whenever there is a brute force attack from a user identity. So these are the playbooks that I have created. Now, while I have created these playbooks, I can use these playbooks in my analytics rule. I can use these playbooks while I configure the analytics rule, or while I work as an L1 engineer, as an incident responder, I can also run these playbooks the way I've shown you in the incidents. But before you run a playbook, the playbook has to be added to Sentinel. So this is something that I will be covering in detail on Monday. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other question, guys? Okay. Let's move on to the next topic. If you don't have any other question. So my next topic is workbook. What is a Sentinel workbook? In what scenarios we can use workbooks? What is the advantage of it? All of that is what we need to discuss now. Now, workbook is similar to a dashboard, and dashboard service is available with most of the solutions. So what you see on the Sentinel homepage is nothing but a workbook. This is and it says you are currently viewing the new experience, new overview experience. You can always switch to the old one. If I click on switch to the old one, this is how it would show in the past. This is how it would show. So this is my old experience. And I'll switch to the new one. This is the new experience. This is nothing but a dashboard. And this dashboard is nothing but a workbook in Sentinel language, in Azure language. Give me a moment. Okay. So this is also an example of workbook, because all of this information that you are seeing here, this is also coming from a workbook. So what is a workbook? Workbook is nothing but a dashboard that helps me, that helps you to visualize the data. Okay, please disregard this. Some keys from the keyboards are not working. So workbook will basically help you visualize the data, and you can visualize the data in different formats. And those formats are, you can visualize the data in pie chart format. You can visualize the data in graph format. You can visualize the data in plain text format. You can visualize the data in line format. So you basically get multiple options when it comes to the dashboard, when it comes to the workbook, it basically helps you to visualize the data in multiple formats. And you can also use these workbooks in your monitoring room. Typically, the monitoring rooms are big facilities where you have multiple big screens, and on those screens you will see some dashboards. So those dashboards are workbook in Sentinel language, in Azure language, and each dashboard or each information that you see in the workbook, whatever you see in the workbook, that is basically coming as part of a KQL query. So in the backend, I'm saying you're getting this information. They are known as widgets in the workbook. So it gives you this information that there are 38 incidents in the last 24 hours. Right? Out of those 38 incidents, 35 incidents are new, one incident is active, two incidents have been closed. And the same information that you see here is shown in the form of bars. And then you see some additional properties about those incidents, that out of those 38 incidents, 36 are medium, 32 high, low zero, information zero. Closed incident, because it says two incidents are closed. So those two closed incidents, they were true positive. And then it shows mean time to acknowledge. Now this is your SLAs, that what was your MTTR, what was your mean time to acknowledge, mean time to resolve. So my mean time to acknowledge was 4 minutes. My mean time to close was 14 minutes. This basically helps me to analyze my SOC efficiency. So this is another capability that it brings on the table, that gives me my SOC efficiency, that what is the efficiency with which my SOC is working. So this is my efficiency. Now this is another dashboard that you see here. So I'll talk about this dashboard later. Okay, then comes another widget which shows me data, that this is the data that I've received in last 24 hours. You can see events. I've received 172K events. Events in previous 24 hours, 177K. Anomalies, I've received one anomaly also. Data connectors, I've got a total of 7 healthy data connectors active, no unhealthy, and you will see all the information here. Then come to the right, look at the automation. Yes, I have automation configured, and because of that automation, some incidents were closed, time saved, view workbook, all of this information you see here. It says 4 active automation rules. There are 4 active automation rules are there. Look at the analytics. So here's the analytics information, that I've got 7 analytics rule. They all are enabled. None of them is disabled. None of them is auto disabled. So all of this information I'm getting here, this is known my Sentinel overview dashboard. And all of this information is coming from the KQL. There is a query which is running in the backend. That query is bringing this information. And this is exactly what Workbook is. Workbook is nothing but a dashboard that helps me visualize the data from Sentinel, the data from various Microsoft services, in a manner that I understand it well, in a manner that I can use to forward it or stream it on a screen or share it with somebody. That's what Workbook is. Okay. Now, before we get into the workbook, we need to understand the monitor service, because all of this capability is coming from the monitor service. It is Azure Monitor Service which has the workbook. So you can see in Azure Monitor Service, because at the end of the day, it is Azure Monitor which is monitoring everything, which is connected to a workspace, and that workspace is connected to Sentinel. So Sentinel is nothing but an Azure Monitor Service which has the capability to monitor events from security perspective. So Sentinel is an intelligent Azure Monitor. You can also take it this way. Now Azure Monitor have some workbooks. So in Azure Monitor, if you see here, you will see an option that says workbooks. Azure Monitor gives you certain workbooks. So here you see we have a couple of workbooks. We have getting started workbook. We have a workbook for virtual machine also. 4 workbooks are there for virtual machines. Using these workbooks, I can quickly get the relevant information about my virtual machines. For example, the availability of my virtual machine. So I can click on a workbook and I can see what all information it contains.
Hello, Raghu. We can't able to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the dashboard that I see. Now, this shows me the availability of my virtual machines. The total number of hours is 672, which means this virtual machine was created 672 hours ago. And from that time, this machine has been available 36 hours, 37 hours, 68 hours. Now, this is my main machine, which I'm using in the training for simulating the attack. So this machine has been available for 68 hours most of the time. But if you compare the availability, then it's 10%. So this machine has been available 10% of the time. So this is my availability, workbook. Similarly, if I go back, I can see more workbooks also. I see performance workbook, key matrices. Now come down, you can see the services that Azure Monitor has workbook for a couple of services. And workbooks are nothing but pre-configured dashboards. And you can also create custom workbooks. First, let's look at the pre-configured dashboard. So we have a workbook available for log analytics workspace as well, which is great. So I can click on this workbooks and I will see pre-configured information in this workbook related to the log analytics workspace that I have in this subscription. So this is the pre-configured information about the log analytics workspace. So you can see in that in the log analytics workspace. Now, if I don't select any log analytics workspace, then it gives me the generic information. But if I select a specific workspace, then it will give me information related to that workspace only. Now I'll see the information related to that workspace. So I can see how many alerts are getting ingested in this workspace. These are the tables. All of these are tables, and this is the size of the table. This is the size per entry. I'm saying the per log which is coming into the table. The approximate size of the log is 3 KB, 2.45 KB. So I'm getting the information here. I can get the information about table entities, table size. So I'm able to see a lot of information here related to the workspace. And this is for last 1 hour only. If I select last 7 days, then the information will change. Because in the last 7 days, I've got close to almost a GB of ingestion. So now you will see the information. It has changed. You will see all the information related to various table sizes and all of that. So all of this information is coming from the KQL queries. Now, let's move on to the Sentinel and see what all workbooks are available in Sentinel and how can I create a custom workbook? How can I edit an existing workbook out of the box workbook also? So, similar to analytics rule, so Content Hub is the repository where all solutions are available. Solutions could be from community, from standalone, and they could be from Microsoft also. And solutions contains analytics rules, anti-queries, playbooks, connector, and workbook. This is what a solution contains. So workbook is part of a solution. However, you have seen that not all solution contains a workbook. So we have some out of the box workbooks, and we can also create custom workbook. Let's look at out of the box workbook first, and then we will also create a custom workbook. So I'll navigate to Sentinel service. And I'll see what all out of the box workbooks are available and what all custom are available. So I'll directly navigate to workbooks. Now this is where you will see all the workbooks. When I say all the workbooks, it doesn't mean you will see all the workbooks which are available. No, you will see the workbooks for which a solution has been installed. So for example, right now, there are a total of 4 workbooks that I have saved or I have installed. These are my workbooks. And there are 8 templates. You see 8 templates. What these templates are? This basically means that these are the solutions that I have installed from the content hub. And these solutions, you can also see the data source of this solution. This solution is for AWS. This is also for AWS. This is Azure Activity Solution. This is Azure Active Directory. This is Azure Active Directory. This is standalone. This is standalone. This is standalone. So these are my solutions that I've installed. And in those solutions, you have workbook also. For example, this workbook that says Azure AD sign-in logs. Now you see a green bar here, which means this is installed. So this workbook is coming from Content Hub Azure Active Directory solution. And similarly, there is another workbook, which is Azure AD Audit Logs. This workbook is also coming from Azure Active Directory solution in the Content Hub. However, I am not using this workbook. I'm only using Sign-in Logs workbook. If I want to use this workbook, Azure AD Audit Log, what I can do, I can go to Content Hub. This is how you deploy, configure, or implement or install whatever terminology you want to use. The terminology in Sentinel is save the workbooks. So I'll go to Azure Active Directory solution. I'll click on manage. And here I'll see there are 2 workbooks. So I'll directly in the search, once it loads, I'll type workbook. And you can see I see 2 workbook here. Azure AD Audit Logs and Azure AD Sign-in Logs. Now, how will I know whether I'm using the workbook or not? If you're using a workbook, under created content, it will say 1 item, which means you have deployed this workbook. You're using this workbook. And if it says blank, it means the workbook is not being used. So I want to use this workbook because I want to see the audit logs from Azure AD. So I'll create this work. I'll select this workbook and click on configuration. Now this is the configuration which is available in the workbook. This workbook gives me Azure AD audit logs, and I can click on view template. Template basically shows me the working picture of this workbook, that how this, what information this workbook basically provides. All of that information I can see here. This is the template of the workbook. So I'll go back to the workbook. And if I want to use this workbook, if I want to, if I want this workbook to work for me, all I need to do is hit save. So we basically save a workbook which is available in Content Hub inside a solution. And since this is out of the box workbook, I am not allowed to make changes to this workbook. So I will save this workbook. When I save this workbook, it will ask me for a location, because when you are saving this workbook will also store some data and you will need to pay for that data. So there has to be a tagging for this workbook. So this workbook will be tagged to this location, which is East US. Now your workbook is getting saved. When this workbook is saved, it will appear in Sentinel dashboard under workbook. So now you see a green here. This workbook is saved. This is how I enable a workbook. Now, once this workbook is enabled, I can go back to my Sentinel dashboard. I can click on workbook, and all the workbooks that I have saved will be shown under my workbooks. There are two tabs here, my workbooks and templates. Template will show all the workbooks which are available as part of the solution that you have installed. So we still have a workbook available for AWS network activities. Why? Because we have AWS Amazon Web Services solution installed, and this workbook is part of that solution. Similarly, I still have these three workbooks, and they are standalone workbooks. One shows me my Azure network activities. The other shows me Microsoft Sentinel deployment and migration tracker. Now, this is a great workbook that you can use from day one. Let's say you are in the process of deploying, configuring, and implementing Sentinel for a customer, and you have enabled Sentinel to a workspace, but you want to track the activities. So you can use this workbook. This workbook will give you the entire project plan, the implementation plan, milestone, and everything, using which you can track your migration activity. So this workbook can be a great tool in the hands-on engineering team, in the hands of engineering team, going forward whenever they do a new deployment, implementation, or migration of Sentinel. So this is the workbook, and this workbook is for VM insights. I have 1,000 VMs, 100 VMs, 5 VMs in my subscription. I want to see quick data about them. So instead of navigating to Azure Monitor and to that VM all the time, I want to see a consolidated data about the VMs. That is what this workbook is all about. So let me install this workbook. All you need to do, you can also install the workbook from here. You just need to select the workbook and click on save, and select the location where you want to save the workbook. So I will save all the workbooks. Now, when you are saving a workbook, as I said, in the backend, it is nothing but a KQL query. A KQL query is enabling the output that you see in the workbook. So when you are saving a workbook, you also need to make sure that you look at required data types. And those data types should be green. If they are faded, your workbook will not get the information. So example, if I want to enable this workbook VM Insights, I should have these data types configured. And you can see all of them are configured. They all are green. So I will be able to get the full potential of this workbook. Now, if I go to the other workbook, since this is another workbook, it will not give me all the information. This workbook was created by Mite. Let's see how efficient workbook he has created. So this is how the workbook looks like. I'll first save it, and then we'll see this workbook also. You can use standalone workbook at your own risk, because there are times Microsoft denies support. It doesn't mean that those workbooks are not great. Definitely, they are a great piece of work. They have not been shown here just because the author uploaded them. No, this is not how you get. This is not how a workbook gets here. It goes through a lot of scrutiny from Microsoft also before it is made available to the solution. So this workbook is also deployed. Then there is another workbook. Now you can see this workbook, Azure Network Watcher, needs this data. Azure Network Analysis. It requires this analysis. And since this analysis is not configured, even if I configure this workbook, it would hardly make any difference. I will not get any data presented in this workbook. So you need to make sure that a specific data source is configured. And once that data source is configured, you will have KQL query, which will bring the data. So I'll also show you where exactly I'm saying for which data source, for which connector, what is the data source. So there is an article that has all the information. In fact, there's a Git repository that I follow. I'll share that Git repository with you guys. That's a great piece of information if you really want to do good, really want to go that deep in Sentinel space. This is the Git repository. I'll put it into the chat window. So this is the Git repository for Sentinel. And this Git repository is maintained by Preeti Krishna. Preeti Krishna is the program manager for Microsoft Sentinel. She's one of the program manager. There are many program managers. There are more than 10 program managers for Microsoft Sentinel. She's one of them. So she is the owner of this repository. She's responsible for ensuring this repository remains up to date all the time. Now on this repository, you will see most of the information related to Sentinel. Most of the information that you need. For example, if I want to see the information about data connectors, right? So I will just click on this product documentation here, and it will directly take me to data connector documentation. I'll see all the information here. So this repository contains quick links to all the Sentinel product documentation, as well as additional resources are there. And this has great piece of information. You can use it. So you can just navigate to this repository and you can get all the information. I'm saying if you need help in writing KQL queries because you're new to KQL, then you can directly go to, I'm saying directly takes you to KQL query page. In fact, they have a knowledge base for KQL query also, which is query styling guide. So this is the guide that you can refer to while you are writing a KQL query. I still remember one of the participants wanted to learn KQL queries in detail. I forgot the name of the participant, but this is for you who are for it. This is the repository that you can refer to, which gives you all the details related to KQL queries, the syntax, the best practices, some of the common KQL queries, all of that it provides in this repository. That how you should, and this is the data type. This is what I wanted to talk about. So if you ever want to know that which data type is enabling what type of information, here's the information. So Azure activity, I'm saying if you want, so this is the connector ID and this is the data type. So for example, Azure activity, Azure Active Directory connector. What data type or what data source feeds Azure Active Directory connector is sign-in logs and audit log. Similarly, what data feeds Azure activity is the Azure activity log. Azure Monitor IIS. If you want to get any information related to IIS, there is a connector with the name Azure Monitor IIS that you can enable. And that connector is fed by W3C IIS logs. This is the data source that feds to that connector. Similarly, you can see all the third-party data connectors also. Let's say you have web application firewall. This is Azure native web application firewall service. So the data source for this web application firewall is application gateway diagnostic. Office ATP is security alert. Security events comes from security events itself. Syslog comes from syslog itself. And then if you have third-party solutions like Trend Micro enabled, then it is coming from common security logs or syslog. So all of this is the data types. So this will help you to identify when you are writing a KQL queries, you will know, okay, what data type I need to reference in my KQL query so that I get the relevant data. So this piece of information, I'm saying this GitHub repository is a great piece of information in the hands of admin to get guidance, inputs, and at the same time contribute also. If you would like to contribute, you can at the bottom there is an option to contribute. So you can also contribute. So all of this information you can see there are some examples also sign-in logs, read all logs. So I say this GitHub repository will give you all the information that you need with respect to Sentinel. It has all the information. This is the home of GitHub repository. So you can see all the information here. You have KQL queries, you have notebooks, you have logic apps, you have a lot of information here. The only thing that you need to be cognizant of is the last update. Do not use anything which is updated 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, because there's a high probability that some of the parameters in that source is not up to date. They are deprecated. So if you are looking for a KQL query which was updated 3 years ago, that KQL query might not work today because the parameter or switches that it uses may have got deprecated. So that is what you need to be aware of. Now, people who use GitHub, I don't want to explain more because they understand how to use GitHub. And if you don't know how to use GitHub, then just type on Google GitHub. You will see ample videos. Look for the video from Microsoft that will explain what GitHub is. So this is about GitHub. These are the contributors. This is the language that they are using. They're using Jupyter, PowerShell, Python, YAML, Biceps, all the language they are using. So this is my GitHub category, GitHub repository that you can use, which is a great piece of information for Sentinel admins. Okay. So this was about the data types, that you should know the data types which is enabling the workbook. If that data type is not enabled, then your workbook will not present any data and you will feel that my workbook doesn't work properly. That is not the case. Similarly, if I enable this workbook AWS network activities, it needs data type which is CloudTrail, and CloudTrail is by default enabled because when I configure the data connector for AWS, I have enabled CloudTrail logging in that connector. So it is green, which means if I save this template and if there are network activities in AWS, definitely those network activities are going to be shown in this workbook. So I've enabled all the workbooks. Now we will start with the very first workbook, which is Azure activity. And let's see what this workbook is. Now, whenever you want to see the workbooks, you can click on My Workbooks and you will see all the workbooks now here. I have also created a custom workbook that I will show later. Let's look at one of the out of the box workbook. For example, Azure activity. Let's see what data it provides. So I can click on Azure activity workbook and I will click on view saved workbook. Now this shows me the dashboard for Azure activity and it shows me a great piece of information. See, okay, so this is all that I see here. So I see top 10 active resource groups. These are my top 10 active resource group where most of the activities are happening. These are my top 10 resource group. Now, some of them do not exist. For example, Unisys training. I was delivering a training between 10th to 14th of this month to Unisys on cloud native testing on AWS and Azure. So that resource group I deleted. It doesn't exist anymore. But it shows you top 10 active resource group because this data is coming for the last 7 days and that resource group I only deleted last week. You can get the data, the previous data also. Let's see the data for last 30 days. Now you will see more resource groups, more data. Now these are my activities over time. You can see the activities. Majority of the activities you will find is happening on over here. See, last week, majority of the activities were happening because we were doing the lab exercises. So you will see the activities into this chart and you will see that what is my deletion activity, creation activity, update activity, and activities. So you will see all the information. Then you will see callers, that who are my callers, who are executing these activities. So you can see this is the main caller. This is the caller which has executed majority of the activities. Who is this caller? Over here, this is the main subscription owner account admin, the account with which I'm using the subscription. So I see all the activities that I done a total of 1063 deletions, 2419 creation, these many updates and these many activities. I'll see all of it. And then I'll see some additional activities also. Now, wherever you see this alphanumeric code, this basically means that these activities are not performed by a user. They are non-interactive activities. So they are not interactive. They are non-interactive, which means they are performed by services. And when an activity is performed by a service, you either see the service GUID or the subscription ID. So this activity is performed by the service itself. Then I'll see a couple of activities being performed by this user, Ram Kumar, test user, and additional users. You see all the activities here. Activities by log level over time. So you see some log level activities also. So this is the dashboard for Azure activity log that I see here, which gives me great piece of information. Now the question is, can I edit this dashboard? Can I have some custom information captured here? Because I need one more information, one more piece of information, and then I would probably save this dashboard and stream it on a big screen in my SOC room so that people will be able to see all of these activities. So yes, I have an option to edit the dashboard. When I click on edit the dashboard, I can edit any of the information which is coming here. These are widgets. So this dashboard is divided into 4 widgets. 1, 2, this 3, and this 4th. And against each, you will see an edit option. You can see 4 edit options here. So yes, you can do it. For example, if I want to edit this, I will click on edit. Now it will show me the information that it is picking it up. Now I can edit the information, whatever I need. So typically it picks time range, caller, and resource group. If I want to add more parameters, I can add more parameters. These are the parameters: display name, parameter type, whether it's a test, drop down type. So I can take a test, explanation, all of this information, and I take the parameters. So I can edit a workbook also. But I would not suggest you edit a workbook, because editing a workbook may break the workbook completely, or may, make it inoperable. If you ever want to edit anything, create a custom workbook. So that I will show you later. So this is how you see activity log. Now let's see Azure AD sign-in logs. This is very important for me. Why this is important for me? Because in my environment, there has been a lot of brute force attack in the past. So I want to see sign-in analysis and audit analysis of my users. So this is my workbook for sign-in analysis. Now the brute force attack has been triggered from this ID, Krishna Kumar. So you can see 30. This person has signed in 30 times in the last 14 days. This is the sign-in trend. And you can see this person, which is the account owner, has signed in this many times in the last 14 days. So you can see all the sign-in activities here for the users. Now, if I want to see the sign-in activity for a specific user, I'll use these filters. I'll select the app here. These are the app. For example, I will select my app as Azure Portal. I want to see sign-in activities on Azure Portal only. Then I want to see the sign-in activities from Kishan Kumar, because Kishan Kumar has been a troublemaking user. A lot of brute force attack has happened from this user. So I'll select Kishan Kumar. Now I'll see all the sign-ins from Kishan Kumar. This is what Kishan Kumar. So you can see Kishan Kumar, has 2 sign-ins. So you will see the date here, the trend in the last 14 days, and you can see the majority of the sign-in has happened yesterday on this date, which is 9:41 yesterday. You can see here. You want to see category, if it makes sense, you can see it, sign-in logs and non-interactive. Let's say, has there been any non-interactive logs from Kishan Kumar? Yes, there has been some. Sign-in logs, if you want to see, you will see the sign-in logs only. So you can use filters to, I'm saying the workbook is not something which is static, that you cannot look for the information. Yes, you can look for the information in the workbook. So that's how we are using workbook. Now I will do it. I will do it all. So I see all the information, all. Okay. So this is sign in. Then this is another, which is all sign in, success and failure. This is specific, which shows me all the sign in actions, failure actions and success actions. If I click on failure, then whenever I click on any of the widget, then it will give me the details of that widget. Now this is one dashboard which we used to create as custom dashboard, custom workbook, when this out of the box workbook was not available. This was only made available at the beginning of this year. I still remember last year creating a custom workbook for my customer as part of the implementation deliverable, wherein that workbook will have some data coming from Active Directory, some data coming from activity logs, some data coming from security event, some data coming from other services. And I would divide that dashboard into multiple widgets so that on the same dashboard, customer can see all the information. And whenever they need to get into the detail of the information, they can double click on the widget and it will come into full screen mode and they can see all the information. So this is like this. When I clicked on failure, now it is comes into full screen mode. It shows me all the failures. Now this dashboard or workbook is also helping me to troubleshoot the incidents, both L1 as well as an admin. For example, failure. I already know that failure constitutes brute force attack. Now this has been the failure in the past 14 days, failure logins. So here I can see the failure logins and I can get some intelligence here. This helps me in incident investigation or hunting for, or incident hunting. So I can see the failure logins. I will say there has been a total of 62 sign-ins from Nepal. NP stands for Nepal. And out of those 62, 19 failure, 19 interrupt, and the remaining were successful. So that's how I can see the information. And if I click on it, I will also see the location. I'm saying, for example, this 62, I can see that most of them are from Kathmandu, Nepal. So I'll get some visibility. Do I have a user in Kathmandu working from home these days? That way I can get the visibility. For example, in US, now most of the sign-in logs you can see here. Washington, San Jose, Tustin, all of these locations from US. So this gives me a lot of information. Washington, all of this information. And then some unknown country is also there. Now this is unknown country. This is where the challenge is, because this unknown country is typically a brute force attack on my VM and the IP address was masked in that brute force attack. So I'm actually not able to see the country information here. So this gives me the information. Then I can see the devices also. This is my locations. Now I was selecting 88 failure. So in 88 failure, I can see the devices also. This is sign in using conditional access. Devices are, so majority of the sign in happened from Windows devices, but I can also see some sign in from Android, which means mobile phone. Chrome mobile application was used. So I can see this. Then I can see some sign in using conditional access also. These are the sign ins using conditional access. And when you click on a failure to your right, you also see the failure sign in details. So you can see majority of the failure sign in details are from these users. Radha Kumari, she's a disabled user. Kishan Kumar, Ravi Kumar, myself. You can see all the sign in logs and all the information. And the device sign in you will see here. So the Radha Kumari is actually signing in from Windows 10 devices. All of this information is here. So it's a great piece of information that you are seeing here. This is the recent sign in on Azure portal. This is the troubleshooting sign in. I'm saying you can see the troubleshooting sign in as a invalid username or password. So all of the information you see here, a user account is disabled. The account has been disabled. I will say you can see the sign in based on the error code. The error code URL that I shared yesterday. You can refer to these sign in. So these are the sign in based on error code. Summary of sign ins waiting on user action. These are the sign ins waiting user actions. For example, strong authentication is required. So user tried to sign in, Microsoft challenged with an authentication option and user never provided it. So it's waiting, which means user never provided, user discarded. So it comes under waiting. If user provided and user failed, then it will come on over here in the error code. So you will see all the options, and against each, you will see the users also. For example, for these users, sign-ins waiting over user action. These are the users for which it was waiting. So that's a great dashboard, great workbook that Microsoft provides out of the box to, as part of Sentinel, Sentinel solutions, part of Content Hub. Any question from this workbook, from this dashboard? Okay. Now, what I can do with it? I'm saying I can I can use this workbook while I investigate an incident. I can use this workbook to get a bird eye view of my environment, how my environment is behaving. I can also share this workbook. So there is an option to share the workbook, which is here. So it says share this Azure Sentinel report. So you can you can customize the information in the workbook that you want to see. For example, I want to see the activities for the last 24 hours. I want to see the activities for my Azure portal only. I want to see the activities for Kishan Kumar only. And I want to see all the sign-in logs from Kishan Kumar only. So this is how I can see all the activities. It will populate the relevant data. This is all related to Kishan Kumar only. All of this data is related to Kishan Kumar that you see on the dashboard now. Now, this all information basically helps me to troubleshoot, or this information will basically help to document the incident also. So I can then share it. I can filter the information. I can keep it all the information or specific information and then share this report. So here, this is the link to share. I can share it via email also. So you can see when I click on share via email, it basically opens my default email account, which is configured on this laptop. It is coming on the second screen. So I'm just not able to drag it to the other screen. So you can share this also. You just need to click on share via email, or you can just share this link also. And so you can just share this link, copy this link. Now, who will have access to this? It is not that whosoever has link will have access to this. No, the person has to have credentials on Azure. The person has to have, the person has to authenticate on Azure. So if somebody types this link, they will not directly get access to this workbook. No, they will first need to authenticate because this workbook is part of a subscription. So whosoever is accessing this workbook needs to have access to the subscription, and then the person will be able to see the workbook. So the person will need to authenticate, and then the person will be able to see the workbook. So in a production environment, we typically have a process or a policy wherein the SOC team is supposed to send reports on daily, weekly, and monthly basis to the stakeholders. So this is how SOC team creates the report, because this is a great piece of information that SOC team can, because in this manner, when you show this detailed report to your management will like it. They will think as if you have created all of it from scratch. But the fact is, you have actually not done anything. You have just used the filter, and all of this is created. So you are showing the trend in the bar format, in the pie chart format, in the plain text communication, a lot of information you're showing. So this is how you can share the workbook. You can also tag it, pin default workbook. So when you click on pin default workbook, you will, whenever you open this workbook, it will always show in this manner with these filters on. So you can also tag it if this is what you like. This is like customizing the workbook based on what I want to see. I don't want to see everything that it shows. I want to see specific information. And if you're really, really happy with this workbook, provide your feedback to Microsoft. Appreciate them for the efforts, for the time that they have invested in putting together this workbook. So this is about this workbook. This is about how do we use workbook. Similarly, let's look at one more workbook, which is Microsoft Sentinel Deployment and Migration Tracker. This is for you, Yogesh. This is for the engineering team, basically. So if you are not aware of this workbook, now going forward, you can start using this workbook. It's a great piece of information. So here you can put in all the information. It says project operator failed to resolve scalar expression. That is okay, refresh. And here you can fill in the information. You can edit the workbook and you can fill in the information all by itself. And so you can use this workbook. These are the connectors you can type, edit. So for example, you're doing the deployment, you're into the deployment phase and you are deploying the connectors for your customer. You can create a workbook, save it with the customer name, and then start to fill in the information. So it basically it quickly picks it up. I'm saying you're not filling the information, it is fetching the information automatically. This is like an audit tool. So if you are the architect and you have given certain tasks to your team members, that these are the connectors that you need to deploy and you need to configure. And then you expect them to provide you with the report. Now they can manipulate the report. So what you will do, you will rather log into Sentinel, you will come to this workbook and you can quickly see whether those tasks are completed or not. So you can see here that these are the free tier connectors. These are the free tier. Right now, the connectors that has been enabled in this subscription, in this Sentinel deployment is Azure Activity. Not these one are not enabled. Similarly, these are paid tier connectors. Out of these connectors are enabled. Azure AD non-interactive, audit logs is configured. So it will show you all the connectors which are available in Azure as we speak. So you can quickly see that whether those connectors are enabled or not. And then in this workbook, you will see ingestion data also. So you will know, okay, since we are into the implementation phase, what is my per day ingestion? It should not happen that my implementation will unnecessarily cost a lot of money to my customer. So here you can see the per day injection, and accordingly you can enable or disable a specific analytics rule or a connector. You can see all the activities, that what is how they are getting ingested, all of the data, health about the service, health of the VMs and all the information, devices with MMA in MS Sentinel, all the VMs that has Microsoft Monitoring Agent installed. So if you have, let's say, 200 VMs that you need to onboard in Microsoft Sentinel, and you were supposed to onboard it by Friday EOD. Now the architect will quickly log into this workbook and see how many of them are onboarded as we speak. You don't need to run a KQL query to see that. Directly come to this workbook, it will show you how many of them are onboarded. So you can see here, these are the devices which are onboarded. There are 3 devices only which are onboarded as we see. And you will know, okay, I have asked my team to onboard 20, they have only been able to 3. So there's a huge difference of 17, and you can connect with the team members responsible for it. So just explore this workbook. This has great capabilities. I see it as deployment related, watch list that you can create. Here you can create your project plan and everything that what you want to see. Here you can see analytics, that what all analytics rule has been configured so far. All the information you will see here. So let's say you have given a spreadsheet to your team members to configure 20 analytics rule based on the use cases that you have identified. You can quickly come here and see, okay, only 7 are configured so far. And out of those 7, these many are enabled. And these are the tactics and techniques that has been configured, that has been selected against the rules. You will see all the configuration here. And from here, you can directly open the analysis blade. You can see all the information, and you can see how those analytics rule are behaving as we speak. So you can see out of these 7 analytics rule, the majority of the data, majority of the incidents are created by this rule, which is brute force attack on RDP, 709. And then attempts to sign in from disable accounts is 2 attempts. And this data is for last 30 days, you can see. So all of this information is there in the, so it's a great piece of information that you can see the analytics, health log, all of this information. So which will help you to deploy the Sentinel service, and also track the deployment, and also track the migration that you are doing, all of that. So it is a complete workbook. And I'm saying definitely there are some shortcomings in this workbook, because I suggested this workbook to another customer last month, and they started using it and they really liked it. But then later on, they talked about some anomalies also, some shortcomings. I said, since it's a standalone workbook, it's a free service, let's not complain. Let's focus and appreciate. And if you find any anomaly, you already know where to look for the specific data. So it has great piece of information, data management, you can see. And the person who has created this workbook, that person has also, that person keeps on updating this workbook also. So if something is not working today right, probably tomorrow you will see it working. So right now you can see the data management field also. So instead of going to the workspace, which is enabled for Sentinel, and looking for all of this information, you can directly see the information in the workbook itself, because workbook is picking the information from the same workspace by running a query. So you can see my workbook, my workspace retention is 180 days. I'm using per GB plan. My workspace daily quota is none, and you can see rest of the information. These are my tables and the amount of data which is getting ingested in the table on per day basis. All of that information is here. And the best part is this workbook also gives you an option to add more information if you want to add. So let's say I want to add some additional parameters into this. So I can add parameters. I can select the style, how I want it standard. I can add the parameter. And for adding the parameter, I can write the KQL and all of that advanced settings. So that option is also available to modify and customize it based on your requirement. So that's my migration workbook. So this is about workbook. Now let's create a custom workbook. So I also have a custom workbook that you can see here. Let's see the workbook. In this custom workbook, I'm capturing some information that I need on daily basis. Now, majority of the, I will say 99.9% of the requirements that you may have from visualization and dashboarding perspective are met by out of the box workbooks which are available, which are by default available. But even if you have 1% of requirement, you can see it from here. So you can create a custom workbook. So I have created a custom workbook to get certain information about my virtual machines. So now I have a VM Insight workbook also. Imagine this workbook was not there because it's a standalone workbook. This was recently made available. So there was no workbook in Sentinel that will give me a bird eye view of my infrastructure services. So I can create a workbook for my infrastructure services. So when I create a new workbook, it gives me all of this basic information. Then I can edit the workbook and I can add more information. And here I can add a query. Let's say I want to see CPU and memory utilization of all my virtual machines collectively. So what I will do, I will click on add metric here, and here I'll select the metric. So I want to see the metric for, let's say, last 24 hours. I'll select the time granularity, all of this information, line chart, in what format I want this information, size, medium, color palette. I'm saying whatever color I want to see it. So I can have multi-color workbook here, and then I can add metric. Now, what is that metric? So this is log analytics. Then I can select the metric. Let's say I want to see the available time of my works, virtual machines. So nice time available. We just need to select the matrix from here. Heartbeat. I want to see this data because there is no default workbook. There is no workbook that shows me heartbeat information. Every time I want to see the heartbeat information, I have to go and run a query. So I can create a workbook here so that I don't have to run the query. And I can see the count of heartbeat, and I can put the display name here, which is Azure VM heartbeat, and save it. And then I have added the rating. Now I'll run the metric. So here I run the metric and I can see the average heartbeat. So average VM heartbeat count Sentinel law, and here it will start to populate the data. So I can see the granularity for 1 minute. Line chart, I can configure it in multiple formats. I'm saying not all visualization is available in all of them, but wherever it is available, I can see for row per metric is available, tile is available. I can see in the map and the world map also, if that is available. So these are the visualizations that I can do here. So I have added the visualization. Similarly, if I want to add more, let's say I want to see, I want to add a query here, and based on that query, it should run the results. So my query is, give me a moment. So let's say I want to run the query, which is I want to get the last heartbeat of each computer. So I'll select the query. I'll put that query here. And I will first run this query to see whether it is generating any result. Is running the query. Yep, the query is generating the result last heartbeat of each computer. So I can run this query. I can select the settings that I want. Time range, I want to get it for time range. Here I can see whether I can get this information in a specific format. Run the query again and see whether this information can be visualized in other formats. Whatever format is it, it is available in area chart, bar chart, pie chart. Let's say, can I see this in pie chart? Yes, I can see that in pie chart. These are the number of heartbeats that I have received. Graph, can I see that in graph? Now for graph, I need to fill in all the information. So this is just one-time activity that you need to do. Map, on the world map, I want to see it. So I will apply it. So yes, I can see this information here. You can see unknown East US. This is from East US. So all of this information, whatever information you want to see it here, so you can do it. And once you are done with it, once you are done with creating your workbook. So, for example, I'm creating a workbook which gives me matrices for my virtual machines, which gives me the high level information here, and which gives me the heartbeat for my virtual machines. I also want I also want one more when I want to see the CPU and memory utilization of my virtual machines. So I can run that query also. This is the CPU and memory utilization. Probably this may not return any result because my virtual machines are off most of the time. Okay, great. I've got the result. So this gives me the processor time, CPU and memory time of the virtual machines. Now, once I'm done selecting all the parameters, selecting all that I want to see in my workbook, I can keep on adding more widgets here. This is known as widgets. So we have a widget, which is the default widget. Then we have added this widget. We've added this widget for the heartbeat. We have added another for the CPU and memory utilization, percentage CPU time. If I want to add more, I can add more. So I can add a metric, I can add a query, I can add parameters also. And once I'm done with all of this, then I will say done editing. I'm done with my editing. Now I'll see the results only. So here I see the results, which is the default. Here I see all my VM matrices. Right now it doesn't show anything because the VMs are not doing anything. It shows me all the virtual machines which are sending heartbeat in the last 1 hour so that I will always know, okay, do I have any unhealthy agent? For example, I have 200 virtual machines in my environment, but only 198 are showing heartbeat. So two virtual machines are not healthy. Then I can investigate the agents. And here I show the CPU processor time for the virtual machines, average information. Now, once I'm done with creating a workbook, I can save the workbook. So now I'm saving this workbook. I will put the name as uh, high level infra overview. I can select the resource group where I want to save the workbook, Microsoft Sentinel, location, and it says save content to an Azure storage account only. So I will not check this. Otherwise, what will happen? Whatever data this workbook will create, the data will be saved. The data is already saved in the log analytics workspace. So I don't want additional storage for it. And I will click on apply. So when I click apply, this workbook will be created. Now I have out of the box workbooks available that gives me bird eye view of my environment, probably one for each solution. And I also have this custom workbook that I have created, which I also use once in a while. So for example, now I'm in Sentinel, I can have my custom workbook, my out of the box workbooks all configured on multiple screens and I can show you. See it. So now I'll go to workbooks and I'll see my saved workbook also, which is the one that I've just created. Over here, where is my, okay, not here. I'm saying you just need to refresh and you will start to see it here. Okay, over here. At the bottom, you will see your custom workbook that you have just created. So you can select your custom workbook and you can see the saved workbook whenever you want to see that specific data. So here you see all the specific data that you have in the workbook. And you can see this data is coming for the last 24 hours because that's what you have configured. This data is for the last 24 hours. And you can see for the specific information for which you have configured the workbook. And if you want to see any saved workbook, you just need to click on that workbook and click on view saved workbook. So this is all about workbook, which is nothing but an interactive dashboard that enables the monitoring team to see the current status, the bird eye view of their environment, how the environment is functioning, health of the environment. And these workbooks also helps in troubleshooting the incidents because incident responders or operations team members can also have access to workbook. They just need read only access to the workspace in which the Sentinel is configured, or read only access to the resource group where the workbooks are saved, so that they can also refer to these workbooks while investigating the incident. So, for example, if I was investigating the brute force attack on Azure portal, and I could see that Krishan Kumar was the user, who has triggered that brute force attack, I can quickly come to Azure AD sign-in workbook or Azure AD audit workbook, and I can see that how many times in the past 30 days the same user has triggered the brute force attack, or the brute force attack has been triggered using the same user. So this is like supporting tools and solutions which is available to me to efficiently and effectively investigate an incident. And this all comes by practice. Maybe in the beginning you may not have all of this intelligence, all of this knowledge, but slowly and gradually when you work with Azure, Microsoft Sentinel more, you will see that it is not Sentinel incident only that gives you information. There are supported services like Workbook, like logs, KQL queries that will help you to investigate thoroughly about an incident. So this is my audit log workbook, and audit log gives me all the information related to the audit. For example, when the user was created, when the license was assigned to a group, audit related activities. So you can see add user to group. So this user was added to a group, remove member from a role. All of this information you get in this workbook that related to the audit activities. So you can see there are 65 user management activities, 87 group management, application management. All of this information you see here. How many times a user was updated? You can see hard delete service principal, add service principal. All of that information you can see here. Change user password, how many times user password was changed. So you can see these are the users for which password was changed. And this workbook is giving you information for the last 90 days. So if you want to see whether a password was changed for any user in the last 2 days, last 48 hours, you can quickly come here. You don't need to go to at Azure AD audit logs and run a query or run a filter to see this information. Instead, you can quickly come to this workbook and get this information here. You want to see in last 48 hours, if a password for a specific user was changed, just come to this workbook and see change password, change user password. So here you will see, yes, in the last 20, in the last 48 hours for these three users, password was changed. And how many times? One time. So here you see this information. And when you click on this information, it will also show you some specific information here. You can see 3 times the password was changed in the last, I'm saying 3 times the password was changed in the last 2 days, 48 hours for these three users, and the result was success. Every time it was changed, it was successful. You want to see whether user changed a password by itself, self-service? Yes, you can see they also changed the password because when the password was changed for the user, a temporary password was created and was shared with the user. Then user logged in, and while logging in, user selected a new password. That's what self-service is. So you can quickly see all of the information here. You don't need to go to Azure, Active Directory sign-in or audit logs. You can see that workbook here. You can see whether a user account was disabled. Yes, this user account was disabled. This user account was disabled. All of the information here. Whether the account was enabled. Yes, the account was enabled. So over here, reset password by admin. How many times password was reset by admin? Yes, 2 times password was reset. How many times user password was reset? This is the service which reset the password. So you can see all of this information here itself in the workbook itself. So workbook is a great piece of information that gives you bird eye view of your environment, and it is not for Sentinel only. Workbooks are available for most of the services. I'm saying workbook is a capability of Azure Monitor, and Azure Monitor has workbook available, a couple of workbook available for the services. And based on the services that you will deploy, let's say tomorrow if I deploy deploy Azure Data Factory, Azure Data Lake service, then I will start to see a workbook for it here if that workbook is available. For example, you have workbook for storage account, SQL Insights, Windows Virtual Desktop, which is not deployed yet. So storage account workbook is also here. Now, in this workbook, you will see all the storage accounts that you have in the subscription, the current capacity of those storage accounts, the average data ingestion in those storage accounts in the last couple of days. All of that information you will see here in this workbook, the capacity also. So these are the workbooks, and each workbook that you have gives you a capability to edit the workbook, modify it, and after modification, you can save it, share it, or you can add them to your dashboard. So you have an option here, which is dashboard. You can also add them to your dashboard. This is your dashboard. Dashboard is nothing when you log into Microsoft Azure. Uh, and if you want to see a specific information, you can add that information. You can add that workbook to a dashboard here so that you can directly come to dashboard and see that if it's specific information instead of navigating through multiple screens to reach to that, to reach to that screen. So I'm saying it has nothing to do with Sentinel, but Sentinel is one of the service which interacts with majority of the Azure services. So you will be a good Sentinel person, good Sentinel resource when you have good comfort level with other services also. So that is all that I wanted to share when it comes to workbook, working with workbooks, using workbooks, modifying the workbooks, creating a custom workbooks, all that information here. Let me know if you have any questions. This is your Sentinel incident workbook, which shows you incident related information. That how many incidents got generated, how much time did you take, when all of the information related to incidents. I'm saying your ITSM service owner, somebody who is the owner for ServiceNow, BMC, Remedy, or workforce management would love to see this workbook or would love to have this workbook in the form of reports being sent to him or her at the end of the day every day, because it has all the information that the person wants to see, that what was my mean time to triage, mean time to close, all of this information. And this can be sent to the management to showcase the efficiency of the operations team, that how efficiently operation team is working, how quickly they are picking up the incidents, how quickly they are resolving the incidents, how whether they are using automation, whether they are doing the triage, all of this information is here. Right. Let me know if there is any question. Unless you practice it yourself, trust me, you will not understand it. So the more you practice, the more you go through these workbooks, edit them and see the capability for yourself, that how these workbooks are working, what is the source of power to these workbooks, how the data is being fetched into the workbooks, you will not understand it. So as I told you, the source of information for these workbook is either a metric or a query. So either there is a query which is running in the backend, or there's a metric which has been configured to showcase you the data in the workbook. I'm open to questions, guys, if you have any. So today we completed the incident response, the response part, and we completed the workbook topic. Now, what are we going to do in the remaining sessions? We still have 4 sessions left next week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. In the remaining sessions on Monday, we will talk about automation. We spent We'll spend a great piece of time on automation, that how can we use logic apps, how can we build automation workflows, how can we create actions in the incidents so that they are automatically triggered. That is what we are going to do on Monday, which basically means that what is the current level of your lab should not be the same on Monday. I would want you to have additional analytics rules created over the weekend. I want you to practice. I want you to create a couple of workbooks and dashboard created. I want you to simulate attack yourself so that you will have a couple of incidents available in the portal on Monday, so that when I create the automation rules, you will be able to do it along with me. You will not fall short of data. So do it yourself, simulate attacks, practice, practice, and practice. And then we will spend Monday on automation, and then we will cover a couple of additional topics. The last 2 days, which is Wednesday and Thursday, I'm keeping it for the administrative topic, which is related to migration, which is related to the advanced services in Sentinel, which is user analytics and behavior analytics, which is which is advanced multi-thread detection, hunting queries, Lighthouse service. Definitely, I need to put together a demo over the weekend for Lighthouse and showcase you the demo that how Lighthouse works. How do we use Sentinel for multiple workspaces? So the last 2 days are going to be covering the advanced services or advanced capabilities of Sentinel, which may be outside the purview of operations team, but it's a good to know information for operations team. And for admin and engineering team, it is the actual information that they need to know. So that's what the plan of action or the agenda for the rest of the session is. If you have any specific objective that you may want me to cover, just let me know. I'll make a note of it. I'll see if this is doable. I will have it configured and showcase to you that how we can do it. So let me know so that I will have sufficient time to configure it and showcase it to you that how it works. Otherwise, we'll go as per the agenda. And in the agenda, most of those objectives are already covered for both operations as well as engineering team. So I'll take a pause here and see if you have any questions.
Hi, Raghu. Uh, Sandhya here.
Yes, Sandhya. Yes, tell
Uh,
me.
yeah, can you share me the workbook link for Azure AD sign-in logs?
Azure AD sign-in logs. You want to see that workbook?
Yes, the link I want.
You want to understand how have we created that, enabled that workbook?
Mine is corrupted. It's failed to load. So if I see your workbook, so I can create like that. So I want that link.
I have not created the workbook from scratch. That is the default workbook which is available. There is a template which is available in Azure Active Directory solution. I have only saved that workbook from the template, and hence the workbook is available under my saved workbook. So I'll show you how. I navigate to Sentinel. If yours is getting corrupted, all you need to do is sign out and sign back in. It should auto resolve because there is nothing that we do in that workbook. It's all automated. So you go to Content Hub. Inside the Content Hub, you need to look for Azure Active Directory, the solution to which the workbook is part of. Click on Manage and and let it come. And for that workbook to produce data, you also need to make sure that you do some activity in your account. If you hardly sign into your account, if you hardly do any activities, then workbook will not produce any data. So you need to have some activities there. So when you search for workbook, you will see two workbooks here. Select the sign in log workbook. When you select that workbook, it will say configuration and view template. But if you have not enabled it, it will say save workbook. So you will save it. And once it is saved, then you can come back to the Sentinel dashboard and the Sentinel page once again, navigate to workbook under track management. And then under my workbook, you will see that workbook here, Azure AD sign in. Then you can select the workbook and click on View Saved Workbook. And here it will show you all the default configuration of the workbook. If you want to edit the workbook and add some additional configuration, you can click on Edit and add more widgets to the workbook and save it. That's what you can do. So this is all about working with the workbook. Make sense?
Yeah, Raghu, that